From a blind date came a sister who is a CEO. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526, Internal Fighting in the He Family. Tao Tao said bitterly, yes, these bastards. I destroyed the most popular game of their game company and paralyzed all the companies in their headquarters, and they didn't even apologize. Since you are so stubborn, don't blame me for being rude. Su Weifeng smiled and said, I guess they haven't realized that the person they offended this time was our Tao Tao heroine. If they had known earlier, they would have to kneel down and apologize without you doing anything. It's too late. I'm already very angry. Tao Tao snorted, raised her chin, and was very proud. Her hands were already typing quickly on the keyboard. Su Weifeng smiled and said, you can't not sleep tonight, and not now. Let's go downstairs to have breakfast first, and then you can sleep and deal with them. Oh, that's fine. Tao Tao stopped temporarily. Tao Tao stopped. The technicians on the He family side cheered immediately. Stop, stop. The attack has stopped. The third master of the He family had been in the technical department of the head office all night. Hearing this, he immediately said excitedly, is it really stopped? Yes, it has stopped. If there is no continuous attack, we should be able to get the company's system running normally within 5 hours. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and do it. The technicians immediately started working frantically. After about 5 hours, the company's system finally ran normally. Everyone cheered again. But at this time, Tao Tao, who had eaten and slept enough, had already climbed up and sat in front of the computer again. Hey, it recovered so quickly. I underestimated you. Then her hands began to tap quickly again. In less than 10 minutes, the alarm sounded in the He group. We are under attack again. This time it is more fierce. Not good. The first firewall has been breached. Several important personnel of the He family were all here, listening to the technician's report. Their faces turned green. Quick, we must protect our server. No. The opponent's attack is too fierce. We can't defend it. In less than 20 minutes, the network of his group was completely breached again. The screen was full of cartoon images of He Yifei, who took a step, kowtowed, and held a small sign in his hand. I was wrong. Everyone had already left work for what happened last night, and only the technical staff and a few people in his group knew about it. In this situation now, almost everyone in his group has seen it. Fortunately, He Yifei was not as dirty as yesterday, but his intention seemed more obvious. This was clearly a reminder for He Yifei to admit his mistake. Now everyone has long been accustomed to working on the internet. Now the company's network system is paralyzed, and everyone's computer is in this state. His group was instantly paralyzed. This loss looks like a weekend, allowing everyone to rest for one more day. But in fact, the situation of his group soon spread throughout Yulin, especially those competitors, who immediately seized this opportunity to suppress the interests of his group. In the conference room of the He's headquarters, important members of the He's family gathered here again. The old man sat at one end. His eyes swept over the faces of the He family members one by one. No one in the He family dared to look into the old man's eyes. No one in the He family could challenge the old man's majesty. The old man tapped the table with his fingers and said, it's been half a day. Everyone should have investigated and have some clues, right? No one spoke. Finally, the eldest of the He family, He Xian's father, coughed lightly and said, Father, the current situation of our He family is already known to other families. I already know that some people have already taken action against us. After a pause, he said, because of the network failure, we breached several contracts today. Several companies agreed to postpone the contract, but several others have already proposed compensation. This is just the trouble we have just encountered. If it continues, the consequences will definitely become more and more serious. The old man frowned and said, I don't want to hear about the loss now. I want to know, have you found out who is going to deal with our He family? Everyone was silent again. The old man slammed the table and glared at him, shouting, you all usually think yourselves are so capable. How come you haven't found out anything yet? The fourth son of the He family said in a deep voice at this time, "Father, I feel that this matter is entirely the trouble caused by He Yifu. He is flamboyant in his daily life and has offended many enemies." The second son of the He family, who is also He Yifu's father, immediately frowned and said, "Fourth brother, you can't say that. If it was really the trouble caused by Yifu, then the other party would have targeted Yifu. An action of this scale is definitely not something that ordinary people can do. It must be the power of a family. Even if Yifu has offended people in normal times, it would not cause others to directly go to war with our He family." The fourth son of the He family sneered and said, "Second brother, this is not the time for you to defend Yifu. The first to be attacked was the online game company that Yifu is in charge of, and then our group headquarters. These attacks, all the ways of display, are all aimed at Yifu. If they are not targeted at Yifu, do you believe it?" The second son of the He family was suddenly speechless. The eldest son of the He family said at this time, "So I think that the way to solve it now, no matter who the other party is to let Yifu express his position first, admit his mistake, ease the conflict, and see if the other party is targeting him." The second son of the He family immediately said, "No, even if Yifu is wrong, he also represents a He family. Now the situation is unclear. If he admits his mistake, it means that our He family has given in. Where is our He family's face? How will the outside world view our He family?" The fourth son of the He family glared and said, "Yifu has become what he is now because of you. You are not innocent in this matter. You still have the face to defend your son here?" The old man of the He family slammed the table, which stopped the fight between his children. "Have you hired the hacker expert I asked you to hire?" The third son of the He family said immediately, "Father, I have hired a famous hacker team with a large sum of money. They will start working soon. I think they should be able to track down the other party's origins." The old man nodded and said, "Okay, now we have to find the person who did it." Only then did Yifu grit his teeth and say, "I must destroy the person who did this." Chapter 527. Finally determined the target. A group of 5 people came to the headquarters of the He group. These 5 people are the famous hacker team in China, the War Soul. The 5 of them set up a network security company. Now is the internet age, and many companies will encounter hacker attacks. This will cause great losses to these companies, and the War Soul team, that is, to help these companies solve problems, has also been quite famous in recent years, and has made a lot of money. This time, after receiving the invitation from the He family, they rushed over immediately. The price they gave was high enough, and they had no reason to refuse. In addition, they are also very confident. With their means, there has been nothing that cannot be solved in the past few years. He Yifu, his father, the second master of the He family, and the third master of the He family are in the technical department at this time. Among the brothers of the He family, the second and third brothers have a good relationship. The two have always been together, while the eldest and fourth brothers have always had a bad relationship with them. He Yifu said to his father and uncle proudly, "Dad, Uncle-san, don't worry, these people have never failed in these years, and this time they will definitely solve it easily." The second master of the He family nodded and said, "Find out the person behind the scenes, and don't give up this time." He Yifu also came to the back of the fighting spirit team, and watched several people operating there. "How is it?" He Yifu didn't understand, but at this time he had to show that he valued this matter, so he still pretended to ask. The boss of Zenhun was a thin man with glasses. He had a cigarette in his mouth, and tapped his fingers on the keyboard as he casually said, "It's a piece of cake. With this little skill, there's no challenge at all. It can be done in less than half an hour." Half an hour later, He Yifu came here again. Several people from Zenhun were still fighting hard. He couldn't help but ask in confusion, "Haven't you figured it out yet?" The boss of Zenhun was a little embarrassed, but still said confidently, "I underestimated the other party. It seems that the money you spent is not in vain. We still need a while, but don't worry, we will get it done." He Yifu breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Not only do you have to solve our company's problems, but you also have to find out who is behind this." Absolutely no problem. More than an hour later, He Yifu came to them again, and looked at the 5 people with frowns and bloodshot eyes. It was obvious that these people had also encountered difficulties. He Yiffy asked with a twitch of his mouth. This, you can't handle it either? The leader of the fighting spirit scratched his messy hair, then leaned back in his chair dejectedly, and said, a master is a master, and a legend is a legend. What master? What legend? What are you talking about? He Yiffy shouted anxiously. The leader of the fighting spirit turned his head to look at He Yiffy, then shrugged helplessly and said, we can't solve this matter. He Yiffy widened his eyes and said, we can't solve it. Aren't you the top team in our country? You can't do it either? If it's an ordinary master, we at least have the strength to fight, but judging from this method and technology, the one who is now attacking, is a legendary husky in our hacker world. Husky? A dog? He Yiffy widened his eyes. You idiot, I said the online name of that hacker master is Husky. Then who is he? He Yiffy must be very happy. Knowing who it is, it will be easy to deal with. PFFT. The Warsaw boss looked at He Yiffy like he was an idiot and said, a true hacker master would never reveal his identity. No one knows who Husky is. He Yiffy's face turned black. The boss shook his head again and said, I really don't know what bad things you did to make Husky so angry. This is the first time he has used such a destructive method to attack the company. He Yiffy said angrily, how can I know him? I didn't provoke him. Then you must have provoked Husky's friend. He is a very loyal person. If you provoked his friends, he would do the same. Of course, you did it too much. He Yiffy frowned. This sentence gave him a direction. Wait, you mean Husky is a person? He Yiffy asked again. Of course, masters like this never form a team, they always fight alone. Zanhan and the others packed up and prepared to leave, but before leaving, he said, if you want to solve this problem, think about whether you have offended anyone in the past 2 days. If you have, quickly ask them to let you go. Zanhan was about to leave, and many people from the He family came over. When they heard the news, the eldest brother of the He family immediately grasped the key point and asked, in the past 2 days? Yes, Husky is an impatient person, and he will not leave a grudge overnight, so you must have offended him, or his friends in the past 2 days. Watching them leave, the people of the He family all stared at He Yiffy. He Yiffy's mouth twitched, and he couldn't figure out who it was for a while. The third son of the He family, at this time, his face sank and said, could it be the man and woman who took Xian away that day? Huh? What's going on? The second son of the He family asked in a deep voice at this time. He Yiffy felt ashamed about Su Weifeng and Tao Tao entering the He family, so he concealed the matter and only said that He Xian wanted to follow a man. Everyone basically regarded He Xian as a burden, and basically few people really paid attention to her. He Yiffy then awkwardly recounted what happened that day. After listening to the old man, he looked directly at the third brother and said in a deep voice, is there anything else he didn't make clear? The third master of the He family hesitated for a moment and said, the man and He King fought each other. King later mentioned to me that the young man was not simple. Even if he was a real opponent, he was probably not the opponent of the young man. When the old man heard this, the expression on his face instantly became very ugly. Anything else? The third master of the He family said guiltily, the man and the woman were not afraid in our house. Even the girl seemed not to take our He family seriously. Asshole. The old man slammed the cane in his hand. The third master of the He family trembled with fear, and He Yiffy knelt down in front of the old man. As you said, these two people are obviously not ordinary people. You didn't even ask about their background and directly offended them. This incident must be revenged by these two people. You. The old man was so angry that he almost died. The loss of the He family was one thing, but his descendants were like this, which really disappointed him. How could the He family continue to prosper in the future? Chapter 528, Meet the Little Star Again. Oh my god, they gave up so quickly, how boring. In Teoteo's room, Teoteo waited for a while, but did not wait for the other party to counterattack, and pushed away the laptop with some disappointment. Su Weifeng smiled and said, then can you relax now? Let's go out for dinner tonight. Teoteo tilted his head and thought for a while, and said, okay, I won't deal with them today, give them some opportunities. I'll deal with them tomorrow. Su Weifeng smiled and said, okay, then let's go. I have already made an appointment for dinner today. Teo went to wash his face, wiped his face with a towel, and tilted his head to Su Weifeng and said, but this He family is really tough. It's like this, but they still don't admit defeat. Do they have to let me completely paralyze them? Su Weifeng chuckled, and was also quite surprised, saying, yes, they are really tough. Both of them overlooked a problem. Although Teo pointed directly at Yifu after attacking the other party, it made everyone understand that Yifu had offended someone. But she never said what this guy did to offend people, nor did she reveal that it was her who was offended. Then the people of the He family never thought that such a large-scale attack was only carried out by one person, and it was just such a verbal offense. This led to the situation where Tao continued to attack the He family because they did not admit defeat or apologize. The two went downstairs to He Xian's room. He Xian had changed into a normal set of clothes. Although she still looked haggard and her face was still quite pale, she was more energetic than yesterday. Brother Su, Sister Tao. Su Weifeng said, let's go out for dinner together. I have already made an appointment for a dinner party and someone has invited me. Will I go too? He Xian asked cautiously. Su Weifeng nodded and said, yes, let's go together. He Xian hesitated and said, that's not good. I'm afraid I might say something wrong, or do something wrong, which would have a bad impact on Brother Su and Sister Teo. Su Weifeng smiled and said, it's okay, it's just an ordinary dinner. He Xian agreed. The three of them took a taxi and soon arrived at a hotel. When they entered the private room, there were already two men waiting there. One of them was Zhu Bing and the other was Yang Jun. They both had their own film and television companies, but the scale was not very large, only tens of millions. There were many companies of this scale in Su Weifeng's provincial capital, but it would be good to have more contacts and more opportunities for cooperation. The two sides greeted each other, and Zhu Bing smiled and said, Boss Su, you brought two beauties with you. Fortunately, Yang Jun and I were prepared, otherwise we would have to watch you here. Su Weifeng laughed and said, I just brought friends here to broaden my horizons. They are not in our circle. This sentence was just a reminder with a smile, so that Zhu Bing and Yang Jun would not regard Tao and He Xian as little stars. Ordinary little stars have no fame and no appeal. In the film and television companies, if they want to gain a foothold, they have to curry favor with the boss, so that they can have better opportunities for promotion. And these bosses often have some unspoken rules for these little stars, and they dare not refuse. Zhu Bing and Yang Jun understood immediately. Yang Jun smiled and said, we are looking for 2 stars. One of them has been rising rapidly recently. I thought, if we have a kissing scene, let her play the female lead. Su Weifeng smiled and said, of course, the participation of stars is also a guarantee of box office. I don't know which star it is. If I'm not familiar with it, I can look up information to avoid offending her again. Zhu Bing smiled and said, one is from our company, so don't worry about her. Just pay attention to the other one. Her name is Meng Liana. She recently played the female lead in a web movie. It was quite successful. Although the salary is not high now, she has been getting film offers continuously. It is not easy to get an offer. Su Weifeng immediately thought of the female star he met at the airport. His face was a little strange. This is really a rare encounter in life. I didn't expect to see her here. But it seems that he doesn't have any grudges against her. He just feels that she is a bit pretentious. So he smiled and didn't mention the airport. After a while, 2 women wearing big sunglasses walked in together. Zhu Bing and Yang Jun immediately greeted them warmly. Lina, you are here. We have been waiting for you for a long time. Come, let me introduce you to this Mr. Su Weifeng. He is also our partner. We have to let them take charge of the production of the film this time. Su Weifeng smiled and stretched out his hand to Meng Liana, saying, Miss Meng, we meet again. It's you. Meng Liana held Su Weifeng's hand and bit her teeth hard. These words were squeezed out from between her teeth. This made Su Weifeng a little puzzled. Why did he feel that Meng Liana had a deep hatred for him? He smiled and said, Miss Meng, we met at the airport that day. We are destined to meet. Yes, we are really destined to meet. Meng Liana nodded vigorously and sat down directly. Although she was wearing sunglasses, Su Weifeng could feel Meng Liana's eyes looking at him. It was with a strong hostility. No, it should be said that it was a kind of hatred. Zhu Bing also felt that Meng Liana's attitude was a bit strange, so he smiled and tried to smooth things over, saying, "Boss Su, is there any misunderstanding between you and Miss Liana? If there is any misunderstanding, I will help you to make peace with her at this time." Su Weifeng said, "There must be a misunderstanding." At the airport, Miss Meng's assistant was a bit rude, and I was not polite in my words. In fact, it was just a small friction. Later, Miss Meng wanted to resolve the situation with me, but I was in a hurry at that time, and didn't have time to take a photo. Su Weifeng said this, but he really didn't take these things seriously in his heart. Besides, since it was a business, there was no need for everyone to be so petty, so he said this deliberately, to give Meng Liana a way out. But Su Weifeng didn't know that Meng Liana's hatred for him was not because he scolded his assistant, but because he refused to take a photo with her. Every time she thought of this matter these days, she felt indescribably uncomfortable. Seeing Su Weifeng today, she must vent her anger. But Su Weifeng was also the CEO of a film and television company. Although she was a little taller than the average actor, she didn't seem to have the ability to compete with a CEO of a film and television company. But when Su Weifeng said this, she felt a wrong signal. That is, Su Weifeng was trying to curry favor with her, which meant that she was very important to Su Weifeng now. And when a person's cognition is wrong, then what she does will become more and more biased until she reaches a point of no return. Chapter 529 Hysteria. Meng Liana was feeling angry, but she felt that she had no chance to punish Su Weifeng, so after sitting down, she didn't say anything more. Zhu Bing smiled and said, "Lina, Mr. Su's company is doing well. The latest web drama they shot has received good responses. The script and other things are all produced by their company, and the post-production is also done by their company. It still has great potential." Yang Jun followed up and said, "Yes, this time we plan to have Mr. Su's company produce the script and shoot the film, and then you will star in it. This strong combination will definitely have a better effect." When Meng Liana heard this, she felt relieved. She chuckled, stood up and said, "Mr. Zhu, Mr. Yang, I came here today for you. I thought you wanted me to play the female lead, but who knew that I would be the female lead for his company? I'm really sorry. I still have self-knowledge. I can't catch Mr. Su's eye." Zhu Bing was stunned for a moment, then looked at Su Weifeng, and found that Su Weifeng was also confused. Zhu Bing hurriedly said, "Lina, didn't Mr. Su apologize to you just now? Is there something unsolvable that makes you remember it like this?" Meng Liana sneered and said, "How dare I bear a grudge against President Su? President Su is a big boss. How could he take a small figure like me seriously? The last thing I want to do is to put my hot face in front of someone who doesn't like me. So, regarding the cooperation with President Su, it's better to ask for someone else's help." Yang Jun hurriedly said, "Lina, don't be like this. We have already prepared for this matter in advance. The funds are in place. If you suddenly give up like this, wouldn't all our preparations be ruined?" Meng Liana shrugged her shoulders and said, "President Zhu, President Yang, it shouldn't be difficult for you to find a partner now. I'm very willing to cooperate with you. As long as you change your partner, it doesn't matter who you cooperate with. As long as you don't cooperate with him, I will cooperate with you. But as long as he is there, I will definitely not cooperate." After saying this, Meng Liana raised her chin and seemed to be disdainful of Su Weifeng, but she was always glancing at Su Weifeng from the corner of her eyes. She really wanted to see Su Weifeng's annoyed or angry expression. But Su Weifeng was just stunned for a moment, and then he said curiously, "Ms. Meng, it's okay if you don't want to cooperate, but I really don't understand why you are so hostile to me. Is it because I said a few words to your assistant?" Meng Liana gritted her teeth and said, "Would I bother you about such a small matter?" Su Weifeng said helplessly, "Then I really can't remember what else I did to offend Miss Meng." "You." Meng Liana just said the word "you," then stopped directly, snorted, and said, "Just pretend to be confused. Anyway, Meng Liana, will never cooperate with you in this life. Mr. Zhu, Mr. Yang, you choose me or him." Zhu Bing and Yang Jun looked at each other immediately. They didn't expect Meng Liana to do things so decisively. In this kind of two-choice matter, if they choose, they will offend the other party. But Meng Liana asked them to choose now. If they don't choose, they will directly offend Meng Liana. He Xian just watched silently. She didn't understand why, and she had basically no experience in discussing things with people outside, so she didn't dare to speak. Cao Cao frowned at this time. Although she didn't understand why, she couldn't stand Meng Liana's aggressiveness. She used her mobile phone to look up this Meng Liana and found out that she was just a small star. Rolling her eyes, Cao Cao said directly, if you don't want to cooperate, then don't cooperate. She's just a small star. We don't need to invite such a low-class person when we invite people. What? Meng Liana screamed immediately. What made her most angry was being looked down upon. Cao Cao's words almost directly pierced her lungs. Cao Cao curled her lips unceremoniously and said, okay, you said I'm a low-ranking celebrity, then you can find someone better. Do you have the ability? It's just a small company that made a web movie. Do you really think you're a big film and television company? Meng Liana slammed the table, took off her glasses, and shouted angrily, you are so arrogant. Then you can try to find someone. If you really find one, I, Meng Liana, will admire you. Haha. You are bragging, and you don't care about how powerful you are. Zhu Bing and Yang Jun were really confused at this time. They didn't know what to do. Su Weifeng pulled Cao Cao, then shook his head, stood up, smiled at Zhu Bing and Yang Jun, and said, Boss Zhu, Boss Yang, it seems that we can't talk about this today. Let's forget about it today. We can talk about it again when we have a chance. This Zhu Bing and Yang Jun wanted to detain him, but they still kept their mouths shut. They all understood that Su Weifeng's initiative to leave now was to save face for everyone, and was also the best solution. Meng Liana still sneered at this time and said, Su Weifeng, right? Now I know who you are. I will always pay attention to you. You'd better pay attention to me too. You will see that I'm becoming more and more popular, and it will be more and more out of your reach. Su Weifeng smiled lightly and said without any concern, I wish you success soon. Compared with Meng Liana's hysteria, Su Weifeng's calmness is more generous, which makes Zhu Bing and Yang Jun secretly impressed. If this happened to them, they would definitely find ways to suppress Meng Liana, so that Meng Liana would not be able to get a single role in the future. Su Weifeng, Cao Cao and He Xian walked out of the private room together. Zhu Bing and Yang Jun hurriedly followed him out to see him off. After all, they didn't want to have an enemy with Su Weifeng. Cao Cao lowered her voice and asked in Su Weifeng's ear, this woman is so resentful, did you get her pregnant? Su Weifeng's face turned black immediately, and he said, stop talking nonsense, I just had sex with her when I came here. Cao Cao shrugged his shoulders and said, then why does she hate you so much? If it's not this, I really can't think of any other reason. Just after taking 2 steps, several people suddenly came up quickly. When Su Weifeng saw these people, the corners of his mouth curled up and he said, finally they are here. Cao Cao curled his lips, straightened his chest higher, and his face was full of disdain. He Xian's face turned pale, and she grabbed Su Weifeng's arm at once. These people were exactly the people of the He family, led by the eldest uncle, the third uncle, and He Yifei and several other members of the He family. The two groups stopped in the corridor less than 2 meters apart, and looked at each other. Zhu Bing and Yang Jun saw this posture, and felt a little uneasy. Could these people on the other side come to fight? Chapter 530 Little Star Regrets. He Yifei. Zhu Bing suddenly recognized He Yifei among the people. After all, He Yifei was very active in Yulin, and had a good reputation, so it was easy to identify him. Yang Jun's face changed immediately. Judging from the appearance of these people, He Yifei was obviously not in the middle position, which also meant that there were several people here who had higher status than him. There was no need to guess, these people were important figures of the He family. The reason why so many important people of the He family appeared here was obviously not to block each other's way. The other party was obviously looking at Su Weifeng and the others. What was they doing? Could it be that Su Weifeng and the others had a grudge against the He family? Mr. Su, Ms. Tao, I'm He Zedong, Xian's father. I offended you the last time I came to our He family. I apologize to you first. The old man of the He family stepped forward at this time, and after speaking, he bowed to the two of them. Zhu Bing and Yang Jun's eyes almost popped out, and their jaws almost dropped. What's going on? The He family actually apologized to Su Weifeng and Tao Tao, and they were people with higher status than He Ifei. Wait, he's isn't this the person with the highest status in the He family besides the old man? Glancing at Su Weifeng, they found that Su Weifeng was actually calm, which made the two of them feel like a storm in their hearts. Is Su Weifeng so awesome? At this time, He said again, as Xian's father, I'm even more grateful to you for saving Xian's life and taking care of her. Su Weifeng then said lightly, you're welcome. Meng Liana heard the movement outside and walked out of the door. Seeing Su Weifeng was still here, she frowned and said, Mr. Zhu, Mr. Yang, what do you mean? Why don't you come in? Zhu Bing and Yang Jun frowned immediately. How could this Meng Liana be so blind and target Su Weifeng at this time? Can't she see how difficult it is for Su Weifeng to mess with now? The people of the He family all looked at Meng Liana, and they were very impatient with this woman who suddenly appeared. Zhu Bing and Yang Jun signaled to Su Weifeng and quickly pulled Meng Liana into the room. They knew that it was no longer appropriate for them to stay there. What are you doing? Looking at the expressions on Zhu Bing and Yang Jun's faces, Meng Liana felt something was wrong. Zhu Bing said angrily, Meng Liana, you really made us suffer. Harm you? Meng Liana rolled her eyes and said, Boss Zhu, you are serious, aren't you? For a film and television company of this size, can't you find a partner? If you can't find one, it won't be a problem for me to help you contact a few companies. Yang Jun snorted and said, his size? You are really talking big. Do you know who the girl who sat next to him and didn't speak just now is? Who? Meng Liana felt something was wrong. Yang Jun said, that's the daughter of the powerful He group here. He group. Meng Liana's mouth twitched suddenly. How could she not know the He group? It was definitely a super large group. CEOs like Zhu Bing and Yang Jun were simply incomparable in front of them. Zhu Bing added, and just now I saw that He the vice chairman of the He group, treated Mr. Su very well, even politely. No way. Meng Liana's mouth twitched involuntarily, and her face turned quite pale. Yang Jun snorted and said, do I have to lie to you? I had a great opportunity to make friends with President Su, but it was ruined because of your fooling around here. Meng Liana said with a bitter face, I didn't know he was so powerful. Then her face changed again in an instant, and she said anxiously, President Zhu, President Yang, you must help me. If President Su wants to ban me in the future, then our lives will be over. Zhu Bing snorted and said, I really don't understand. What's wrong with you? Why do you treat President Su like this? Meng Liana bit her lip and said aggrievedly, that day at the airport, I invited him to take a photo with me, and he refused, so Zhu Bing and Yang Jun both looked black and said, because of this, you'd better wish you good luck in this matter. Meng Liana was about to cry when she saw that the two CEOs did not help her. She was even more regretful in her heart. How could she be so stupid? She had a great opportunity to meet a real big CEO of a film and television company, but she not only did not cherish it, but also offended him. If God gave her a chance, she would rather kneel in front of Su Weifeng than offend him. She suddenly stood up and wanted to rush out to Su Weifeng to plead for mercy. Zhu Bing and Yang Jun hurriedly held him back. Zhu Bing said, don't make trouble. CEO Su is talking to someone from the He family now. If you rush out at this time, even if you plead for mercy, it will definitely make people hate you even more. Meng Liana's body softened, and she collapsed directly on the ground. She was a star, but at this time she was like a resentful woman. He sitting outside the door smiled and said, Mr. Su, Ms. Tao, why don't we find a place to talk? Su Weifeng nodded and agreed. Soon the group arrived at a large reception room in the hotel. Su Weifeng and Tao Tao sat down directly. He Xian did not hesitate and sat next to Tao Tao. The He family also sat down. It was He who spoke first. Mr. Su, Ms. Tao, I never thought that you two were famous hacker masters. We are really disrespectful. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, you misunderstood. He is my friend. We don't have that ability yet. Cao Cao's hacker identity should be as mysterious as possible, so Su Weifeng took the matter over directly. Heziden also smiled slightly and said, Mr. Su actually has such a powerful friend. It's really enviable. Su Weifeng nodded and waited for Heziden's next words. Heziden coughed lightly and said, first of all, our He family apologizes to the two of you for the conflict. If Mr. Su needs anything, just tell us. I will definitely meet Mr. Su's request. Cao Cao snorted and said, we don't want anything. I just want this bastard to kneel down and apologize to me. Impossible. He Yifei slapped the armrest of the sofa and stood up. Heziden waved his hand to stop the Yifei and then said to Cao Cao, Ms. Tao, this involves the face of our He family. It is really difficult to agree. Please change your request. Cao Cao sneered and said, I will never forget what he said at that time. Many people have heard his harsh words to me and brother Weifeng. In the eyes of your He family, no matter how unreasonable your He family's requests are, it doesn't matter. What we ask for is unreasonable, right? Humph. Then let's wait and see who can outlast who. Chapter 531, 1 verses 3. The third master of the He family is named Hezixi. The four brothers of the He family are named Dongnan, Zibi, and Angbi. The third master of the He family slapped the armrest and glared at you. We are talking to you nicely. You'd better not push your luck, otherwise don't blame us for being rude. Cao Cao also glared at him. You're welcome. Okay, then I won't be polite. Hezixi turned his head and looked at Heziden, saying, brother, I told you long ago that there is no need to talk to these two little guys. Just arrest them directly and they have to listen to us obediently. Heziden frowned and pondered without saying a word. Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes and said, it seems that your He family wants to use force. He Yifei showed a ferocious look on his face and gritted his teeth and said, you are right. You have caused our He family to suffer such a huge economic loss. Do you think our He family will let you go? Su Weifeng looked at Heziden and said slowly, Mr. He, do you think so too? He Xian hurriedly looked at her father with a pleading look and said, Dad, brother Su is my savior. Heziden frowned even more and said, Mr. Su, I really don't want a conflict, so please consider changing the method, such as using money. Su Weifeng shook his head and said, this request will never change. Heziden sighed and said, if you insist on doing this, then I really can't do anything. He Yifei was overjoyed at this time. He laughed wildly and said, boy, we'll let you go last time, but you dared to mess with our He family. You really don't even know how to write the word death. This time, just wait and see how I kill you. Su Weifeng glanced at He Yifei and said lightly, I know how to write the word death, but I'm quite puzzled. Can I die just by moving your mouth? He Yifei snorted and said, boy, do you think that you can fight a little and don't take our He family seriously? Well, I will let you know now how stupid your idea is. Catch him for me. As He Yifei finished speaking, the three people who were originally standing behind Heziden and others jumped out together and pressed directly towards Su Weifeng. He Xian was about to stand up in a hurry, but Cao Cao held her back and whispered in her ear, it's okay, it's the He family who are looking for death. He Xian was stunned for a moment. The three people who came out were very powerful people in the He family. Even if she didn't know how powerful they were, even her father and others were very polite to these people and didn't dare to offend them at all. This shows their status and strength in the He family. And now there is only Su Weifeng here. Can he really do it? Su Weifeng had already stood up at this time and said lightly, it just so happens that I haven't exercised these 2 days. It's great to have someone to be a sandbag. Young man, you are really arrogant. Don't blame us for being rude. The one in the middle of the three snorted at this time, obviously dissatisfied with Su Weifeng's arrogant attitude. Su Weifeng sneered and said, don't pretend to be a master here. Since you serve the He family, can you not take action when the master gives the order? As a senior special forces soldier in the army, Su Weifeng knew too well the country's thirst for talents. Modern warfare has undergone many changes. In many cases, real people are not needed to participate. However, in fact, most tasks still require personnel, especially those with high combat effectiveness. The more skilled the people are, the better. It is not easy to train such people in the army. However, these big families of such high combat effectiveness people who only work for their families and never work for the country. So when Su Weifeng saw such people, he was particularly unhappy. Boy, you are looking for death. The three people were furious at the same time, and one of them rushed towards Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng went straight up and fought with the man. It seemed that it was difficult to determine the winner. Bang! Su Weifeng suddenly hit the master with a punch, and the master took a step back. The He family frowned immediately. Although they had evaluated Su Weifeng's combat effectiveness in advance, they thought that he was equivalent to a master in the family. Sending 3 masters meant that they paid enough attention to Su Weifeng. But now, one person attacked, and Su Weifeng hit him with a punch in just 2 punches. The master was not injured, but felt a little pain. He was furious. It was very embarrassing to fail in front of the He family. It also affected his future status. He immediately rushed to Su Weifeng again. Bang bang. But before he could hit him twice, Su Weifeng hit him with several punches. I'll help you. The second master, seeing that the situation was not good, immediately kicked Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng laughed and said, 2 people are useless. As Su Weifeng said, although he was 1 against 2, Su Weifeng was still not at a disadvantage. The 2 masters did not pose any threat to Su Weifeng at all. Su Weifeng's fists hit the 2 people from time to time. The sound of the fists hitting the body made the He family feel indescribably depressed. It's okay. Although this guy is fast and responsive, he doesn't have enough strength. Don't worry about him. After the last master said this, he rushed up directly. This made the He family feel a little relieved. As long as the fight lasted a little longer, it seemed that Su Weifeng might not have so much strength, and he would be caught in the end. But they soon felt that something was wrong. Obviously, 3 people went up, but still didn't get any advantage. The 3 people seemed to surround Su Weifeng and beat him, but their punches and kicks were all empty. Even if they hit Su Weifeng, it was on his arms and legs. It was Su Weifeng's normal defense, and did not cause any harm to Su Weifeng at all. But Su Weifeng's punches and kicks were constantly hitting the 3 people. The 3 people were not only beaten on their bodies, but also on their faces from time to time. It seemed that they were indeed lacking in strength. The fighting power of the 3 people was still there, but when they thought of what Su Weifeng said just now, they were all black lines on their heads. Su Weifeng was clearly using these 3 people as sandbags, just like practicing boxing. Otherwise, he would have knocked these 3 people down long ago. This guy's strength is really too strong. Where did this master come from? Chapter 532. Just slap you in the face. Idiot. What are you doing? Kill him. He Yifei became more and more annoyed and couldn't help but curse loudly. The 3 masters of the He family all had red faces and tried their best to attack Su Weifeng. But what greeted them was still a punch after punch. Every punch hit them. It didn't hurt much, but the kind of depression in their hearts would increase a bit. They felt that they were about to explode. As masters of the He family, even if they had failed, they had never felt so frustrated and uncomfortable as now. Stop. Hizadon suddenly shouted. When the 3 masters heard this, they were overjoyed. Finally, they didn't have to fight such a frustrating fight anymore, so they wanted to withdraw. But Su Weifeng shouted, if you want to fight, fight. If you don't want to fight, don't fight. It's not that easy. As he spoke, he punched and kicked at the same time. He actually used his own strength to beat the 3 people, so that the 3 people could not escape from the encirclement. This made Hizadon embarrassed, and the other people in the He family were all angry. However, in this kind of fight, none of them could participate, and they could only roll their eyes in anger. Bang bang. After another series of beating sounds, Su Weifeng retreated and sat next to Tao Tao. Tao Tao directly took Su Weifeng's arm, looked at the 3 masters in the middle who were looking at each other, and suddenly burst out laughing. Then he laughed more and more, and finally fell on Su Weifeng's thighs, and couldn't straighten his waist at all. He Xian couldn't help laughing, because the 3 masters, at this time, all had bruises on their noses and faces, and their eyes were dark, like giant pandas, which was really embarrassing. The He family's face became even uglier at this time. Su Weifeng was clearly slapping the face of the He family, and he clearly didn't give them any face. Hizadon sighed, looked at Hizixi and He Yifei with some reproach, and said, let's go. In this situation, How can the He family talk to Su Weifeng? They can only leave in disgrace. A group of people walked to the door, and He Yifei turned around and shouted at Su Weifeng with gritted teeth. Boy, I tell you, our He family has countless ways to deal with you. You'd better look forward to seeing the sun tomorrow. Su Weifeng's eyes turned cold, and he said lightly, okay, Su Weifeng always like to pay back double. The He family walked over, but Meng Liana appeared at the door. She glanced at Su Weifeng and sighed, and her eyes suddenly lit up. After listening to what Zhu Bing and Yang Jun said just now, she became more and more flustered. How could she have the mood to eat? She came out to inquire about it, and then she knew that Su Weifeng and the He family were in this reception room. She came here to find Su Weifeng to apologize. A powerful film and television company boss, for a film and television actor, can definitely affect her future. As soon as she arrived here, she saw the He family members leaving angrily one by one, especially seeing He Yifei there saying harsh words to Su Weifeng. This made Meng Liana realize a problem all of a sudden. Su Weifeng had offended the He family. At this moment, Meng Liana made a decision that she thought was very wise. She pointed at Su Weifeng in the house and shouted, Su Weifeng, who do you think you are? Do you really think you are so great? How dare you talk to Mr. He like this? I think you are really looking for death. He Yifei, Su Weifeng and the other two who stayed in the house were all confused by Meng Liana's sudden appearance. Seeing that she had successfully attracted He Yifei's attention, Meng Liana hurriedly walked up to He Yifei and said righteously, Mr. He, I know this person a little bit. He simply does not know right from wrong, does not understand reason, and does not know what is good for him. You don't need to be polite to such a person. You must let him know that there are too many people in this world that he cannot afford to offend. It must be said that Meng Liana's performance in front of He Yifei at this time really touched He Yifei's heart. In addition, she is a celebrity, and she is indeed quite beautiful. He Yifei immediately laughed and said, Sister, you are right. Meng Liana said angrily again, Mr. He, I just don't have the ability. If I have the ability, I will definitely make him suffer, so that he can neither live nor die. I really hope I have the opportunity to see all this with my own eyes. He Yifei laughed, stretched out his arm, and put his arm around Meng Liana's shoulders, saying, if you want to see it, then I will let you see it. Come with me. Meng Liana was so happy in her heart, but on the surface she pretended to be reserved and said, Mr. He, no buts, I just like you. He Yifei's hand slid down and hugged her waist. Meng Liana knew that if she was more reserved, she would miss this opportunity. She smiled shyly and said, Mr. He, you can't let me down. Don't worry, I won't let you down, but not today. Come with me to relax today. He Yifei raised his middle finger to Su Weifeng provocatively and walked away with Meng Liana in his arms. Before leaving, Meng Liana showed an extremely proud expression to Su Weifeng. Idiot. Tao Tao curled her lips in disdain. This sentence was not said by He Yifei, but by Meng Liana. He Xian asked curiously, are you talking about that Meng Liana? Yeah, this woman is such an idiot. She thought she had embraced a thigh, but she missed a bigger thigh. And the one she embraced couldn't even keep her. Sometimes a woman makes the wrong choice, and that's a lifelong thing. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, what you said makes sense. Teo puffed out his chest and said, of course, I'm a very philosophical person. Maybe I'll be a philosopher in the future. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, you'd better not harm future generations. If future generations develop according to your philosophical thoughts, it will easily lead to the extinction of mankind. Su Weifeng, I'll be angry if you say that to me. Teo glared fiercely, but he also chuckled. Seeing that the two of them didn't mention the He family at all, He Xian couldn't help but said anxiously, Brother Su, Sister Teo, when they go back, there will definitely be stronger revenge. They are deeply rooted here, and they have too many ways to deal with you. Teo snorted and said, they'd better not stop. I still have a lot of tricks that I haven't used yet. Su Weifeng also said nonchalantly, when the enemy comes, we will fight him. When the water comes, we will block it with earth. He Xian's mouth twitched. Even if she hated the He family, she had to admit that the He family was powerful. But now the man and woman in front of her, just these two people, actually didn't take the He family seriously at all. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 533, The He Family's Persistence. The He family members returned to the He family headquarters, and the old man was sitting in the chairman's office at the headquarters. As for Meng Liana, she was not qualified to see the old man, so he literally just asked her to wait in an office. Looking at the screen on the computer in front of him, and then looking at the three family masters who were beaten black and blue, the old man's face suddenly sank. He began to report angrily, "Father, that kid is really rampant. He even asked Yifei to kneel down, and Kowtow to admit his fault. This kind of insult is absolutely unacceptable to our He family," the old man said in a deep voice. "Then what?" He was embarrassed and annoyed and said, "Of course we can't agree, so we want to catch them back." The old man glared and said, "Humph. Looking at this, you have failed. Who else is there besides those two people?" The three family masters all lowered their heads in shame. However, there was still one person who whispered, "Master, that young man's strength is unfathomable. When he fought with us today, we clearly felt that he did not use his full strength at all. If he really wanted to use his full strength, I'm afraid that we would have been left behind by him long ago." He snorted and said, "That kid is indeed a master. I will immediately mobilize the masters in the family and borrow a few masters from other families. I will definitely crush him into slag." He immediately frowned and said, "This is not appropriate. Our dignified He family can't even beat a young man. This is already very embarrassing. Do you want other families to know about this?" He snorted and said, "Then I will immediately arrange for the public security personnel to arrest this kid. Even if he is a good fighter, does he dare to fight against the police?" He shook his head again and said, "This is even more inappropriate. The current country has extremely strict management of the abuse of public power. Our He family's people in these departments should not be used easily unless necessary. Otherwise, once a problem occurs, it will be an irreparable loss." He suddenly got angry and shouted, "What do you mean? You can't do this or that. Are you going to let that kid get away with it? Or let you freak out to that kid and girl, and bring shame to our He family?" He shook his head and said, "Of course not, but I think the origins of these two people are a little hard to figure out. What we see on the surface cannot prove that they have such strength, so I think it is better not to use force easily." He said angrily, "Don't use force. Humph, this kid is going to shit on our heads. The company headquarters is now paralyzed. A game of the game company is stagnant and the loss is expected to be serious. Why don't we fight back against him?" He said, "I didn't say we won't fight back, but we must first know what they care about and what their weaknesses are. If we don't even know their shortcomings, it is definitely not a wise move to fight hard." He said angrily, "They are just two people, not a big family. Do we need to go through so much trouble?" He was speechless for a moment. His previous idea was indeed to fight against the big family, but in fact, the other party seemed to have only two people, and at most there was a husky behind the scenes. The old man said coldly at this time, "Okay, stop arguing." He and he both looked at the old man. The old man frowned and said with obvious dissatisfaction, "The most important issue now is, no matter what method you use, how confident are you in solving this matter? If we don't solve this problem in 2 days, the loss suffered by our He family will be irreparable." He gritted his teeth and said, "That kid is in Yangcheng. We can't reach out to him. He is here. It seems that he wants to negotiate with some film and television companies, so we will cut off his opportunity, and he can't even think about making a deal here." He objected again and said, "How much profit can he make from a project? If so, we can just give him 18 million, then it will be solved." He said, "How can this be the same? We cut off his way and let him beg us. We are in control. If we take the initiative to give him money, wouldn't it mean that our He family will lose face?" The old man snorted and said, "What a fool. The other party forced Yifei to kowtow and admit his mistakes, and didn't mention any other conditions. It is enough to show that they don't care about the issue of money at all. If the business fails, it won't be a big loss for him, but every day it drags on, how much loss will our He family suffer? His voice suddenly turned cold. He had encountered troubles all his life, but the He family had always been successful in dealing with them. Now that they had encountered two young people, the entire He family felt constrained. The methods that they had mastered in the past seemed to be useless now. The old man looked at Izidin and said, "Isn't Qian with them? As a father, don't you care about your own daughter?" Izidin was stunned for a moment, then he immediately understood and said, "Okay, I'll do it right away." After Izidin went out, Hizixi said, "Father, we still need to prepare. Eldest brother doesn't like this daughter. If he goes at this time, it may not be of any use." The old man snorted, took off a bracelet from his wrist, threw it to Hizixi, and said, "Go and invite Beilang out." Hizixi's eyes suddenly lit up, and he said excitedly, "Grandpa, is this the legendary Beilang who killed the 7 masters of the Song family single-handedly?" The old man of the He family said lightly, "Yes." He was even more excited and said, "Okay, thank you grandpa, this time, I ask to go with Beilang. I want to see with my own eyes how that kid died at the hands of Beilang." The old man of the He family nodded and said, "Then you can go with your third uncle. The friendship of Beilang is getting less and less for our He family. If it weren't for the huge loss of the He family this time, I really don't want to use him." He was not ashamed at all. Instead, he said angrily, "It's all because of those 2 bastards. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't be in this situation. And that loser Qian, if he hadn't brought those 2 people to our house, this situation wouldn't have happened." Hizixi also snorted and said, "Yes, Qian is secretly communicating with foreign enemies. This time, if the eldest brother goes there, it's fine to negotiate. If the negotiation fails, she will definitely be kicked out of the He family, and she is not allowed to show herself as a member of the He family in the future." At this time, Hi's mobile phone received a message. "Mr. He, it's bad. The rest of our company's games have all been attacked." Chapter 534 Hizidin visits. Su Weifeng didn't take the He family's preparation seriously at all. After eating outside, the 3 of them returned to the hotel. Tao Tao continued to play his invasion game. This time, he obviously increased the difficulty of the game and started a multi-line operation directly, launching an all-round attack on the He family. But now, Su Weifeng changed to a large suite so that the 3 of them were together. Although Su Weifeng was not afraid of the He family, he still had to consider Tao Tao's safety. If this girl got into trouble here, the anger of the Tao family would not be comparable to that of the He family. Of course, the most important point is that he now really regarded Tao Tao as a friend, and her safety must be guaranteed by himself. Qian looked at Tao Tao curiously as she was fiddling with the computer, and asked curiously, "Sister Tao Tao, what are you doing?" Tao Tao said angrily, "I'm attacking your He family. I will make sure that no computer in your He family can be used, and then I will make sure that none of your He family members' cell phones can be used. I will destroy all your He family's data." Qian actually felt a little excited. You know, for a patient with severe depression, he is usually indifferent to everything and has no interest in anything. This kind of reaction is quite rare. Sister Tao Tao is actually a hacker. Tao Tao said, "I'm attacking your family now. Your He family will suffer heavy losses. Aren't you worried at all?" Qian said calmly, "I have already left the He family, and they basically don't regard me as a member of the He family. What losses they have, what does it have to do with me?" Su Weifeng said, "Qian, don't listen to Tao Tao's bragging. He is not that capable. There are other people who really made the move." Su Weifeng naturally couldn't trust Qian too much, since he had only known Qian for such a short time, so he still wanted to help Tao Tao hide her identity. Tao Tao curled her lips and said, "You don't have to help me hide it. I did it. I'm a husky. Even if the He family knows it, what does it matter?" Su Weifeng couldn't help but frowned. He felt that Tao Tao had exposed such a hidden identity for this dispute of arrogance. It was really not worth it. Qian didn't feel uncomfortable because Su Weifeng concealed it from her. Soon, Qian felt a little tired and came to the outer room of the suite to rest. Su Weifeng frowned and whispered, "Tao Tao, your identity. Teo smiled and leaned over to whisper in Su Weifeng's ear, "This husky identity is just an ordinary identity among my network hackers. If one is exposed, I still have many other identities. It's not a big deal." Su Weifeng widened his eyes and said, "You are a million incarnations. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it." Teo blinked proudly and said, "In reality, I may be almost there, but it is impossible to catch me on the internet." Su Weifeng was relieved at this time. As long as Teo had other hidden identities, it would not be a big problem. At this time, the doorbell rang. Su Weifeng said, "This should be the He family again. I'll go out and take a look." When he opened the door, it was indeed the He family, but this time there was only He Zedong and He Xian's mother, Zhao King. Daughter. Zhao King saw He Xian and hurried over and hugged her daughter. Su Weifeng closed the door and asked He Zedong to sit down. He Zedong was relieved to see that Su Weifeng's attitude was okay. After sitting down, he said, "Thank you so much, Mr. Su. I'm so grateful to see my daughter looking so good here with you." Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "Mr. He, just say what you want to say. There's no need to play the emotional card with Xian. I treated her just because of fate." He Zedong was a little embarrassed, but still said, "Mr. Su, our He family did not do the right thing in this matter, so I sincerely apologize to you on behalf of the He family." Su Weifeng said, "Forget about the empty apology. We still have to look at the reality. It's really difficult for you to make Yefei kneel down and kowtow. I won't hide it from you. The He family is basically divided into two factions. One faction is a strong expansionist faction, which is led by my second and third brothers. Yefei is the son of my second brother. They have always been tough in their attitude towards the outside world. They want our He family to expand further, so they will regard their face as more important than anything else." Su Weifeng did not speak, just listened quietly. "My fourth brother and I are the conservative ones. We hope to maintain the current status of our He family and avoid causing disputes. We share interests and cooperate with other families. Because our concepts conflict greatly, we will have different approaches to any event." Su Weifeng smiled faintly and said, "What does Mr. He think?" He Zedong said, "Mr. Su, my idea, whether it is money or things, and other demands, He Zedong, can agree here, as long as Mr. Su does not force Yefei to kneel down." Su Weifeng said faintly, "We don't have to ask him to kneel down. What we want is his sincere apology and whether he really realizes his mistakes. But obviously, he doesn't realize his mistakes at all. Then we can only let him understand that his unreasonableness, his arrogance, and his behavior of not taking the dignity of others into consideration will be punished." He Zedong said hurriedly, "Mr. Su, we will definitely teach him a lesson when we go back." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "Lessons? You also said that you are basically in a competitive mode. Will he listen to you? From his attitude towards Xian and Xian's mother, I know that he doesn't take you seriously either." He Zedong was embarrassed and said, "After all, the old man has the final say in our family. He dare not disobey the old man's teachings." Su Weifeng laughed and said, "If your old man is clearly wavering, and even supports the hardliners in the He family, how could he allow such a split in the family?" He Zedong was speechless for a moment. Su Weifeng's insight did not seem to be something a young person should have, let alone an ordinary person. This was definitely something that only people who were familiar with the situation of large families could understand. This Su Weifeng, was he from a large family? And if he was really from a large family, then he certainly wasn't from Yulin. He might even be from Beijing. Chapter 535. I think so too. He Zedong looked at his daughter, then took a deep breath and said, "Mr. Su, do you think my daughter's illness can be cured? If I keep treating her, she will definitely be cured." Su Weifeng answered calmly. He Zedong said, "My daughter has received the best education since she was a child. If it weren't for this disease, she would have been a lady from a noble family. If Mr. Su can cure my daughter, I can agree to let her stay with you forever." "Stay with me forever?" Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes. He Zedong nodded and said, "Yes, I know Mr. Su has a girlfriend, so I don't want you to marry my daughter, but let her be your concubine." The expression on Zhao King's face suddenly froze, and then she lowered her head. He Xian grabbed her mother's hand and said to her father angrily, "Do you want me to be like my mother in this life? no dignity, no status, and be humble every day. Hizidong's face sank and said, "What are you talking about? Your mother is the woman of the eldest son of our He family. How many people envy and admire her? How can she have no dignity and status?" He Xian gritted her teeth and said, "What you said is very good. Indeed, the woman of the eldest son of the He family is really very prestigious in the eyes of outsiders, but in the He family, how many people will look at my mother straight in the eye? Not to mention the uncles, even my cousins. How many people really look up to my mother, don't you know?" Zhao King raised her head and looked at Hizidong with tears in her eyes and said, "It's okay for me to live my life like this, but you want our daughter to follow this path. But you are Xian's biological father." Hizidong snorted and said, "You are really short-sighted. Mr. Su's future achievements are limitless, and I can also see that Mr. Su is not the kind of heartless person, and there are not so many right and wrongs in his family. As long as Mr. Su is willing, he will definitely be good to Xian. Mr. Su, is what I said okay?" Su Weifeng frowned slightly and said, "Mr. He, you don't have to think about this matter. The grudge between me and your He family is not big or small. It all depends on your attitude. I can't accept your attempt to resolve it in this way." Hizidong smiled slightly and said, "Mr. Su, don't think too much. I didn't say that you wanted my daughter and the matter is over. I just feel that my daughter has found a capable man and that she can be trusted for life." Su Weifeng shook his head and said, "Mr. He, if you really care about your daughter, then think about finding a man she really likes to marry, instead of arranging a home for her in such a hurry." At this point, Su Weifeng stood up and said, "If Mr. He doesn't have any constructive suggestions, then let's stop here." Hizidong also stood up and said with a wry smile, "Mr. Su, it's not a big deal. Why make such a fuss? Can't you change the conditions and solve this matter as soon as possible?" Su Weifeng shrugged and said, "If your He family asked someone to apologize, it might be even simpler, right?" Hizidong was speechless. If someone provoked their He family, then their He family would definitely demand more than what Su Weifeng put forward. So, I'm just giving you a taste of your own medicine. To put it bluntly, I just want to embarrass your He family. If you admit it, then this matter can end. If you don't, it depends on how long you can hold out." Hizidong sighed and said, "In that case, I won't say any more. However, Xian and her mother have a very good relationship. You won't mind letting them spend more time together, right?" Su Weifeng knew what Hizidong was thinking, but he didn't point it out at this time. He said, "Xian, then go and chat with your parents for a while." No. He Xian shook her head vigorously, got up quickly, walked quickly to Su Weifeng's side, grabbed Su Weifeng's arm, and said nervously, "I won't go back to the He family, absolutely not." Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "Then you can chat here. I'll go in and chat with my girlfriend." He Xian hesitated for a moment before letting go of Su Weifeng's arm. After Su Weifeng went in, he closed the door of the suite directly. Teo was still operating the computer there. He opened a file and said, "Haha, look what I found." Su Weifeng took a look and couldn't help but frowned. He said, "This is really important. If we get this out, the He family will be in trouble." Teo smiled and said, "Then won't they be killed this time?" Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment and said, "Don't mess around with this matter. This involves Yulen's various industries, and we still need to make decisions from above." Teo smiled and said, "I don't care about these. I just found something interesting and let you see it. Do whatever you want with it." Su Weifeng thought about it and sent this thing directly to Meng Keqing. Meng Keqing quickly sent a message saying, "This matter cannot be touched for the time being. It will cause a stir in the local area. In addition, there must be sufficient evidence. This account book alone is not enough to convict." Su Weifeng said, "I have the same idea, but I'm not sure, so I'll let you make the decision." Meng Keqing sent a shy and sweet expression, saying, "But you can use this to threaten the He family and make them obedient." Well, it depends on their situation. If they are happy, I don't mind scaring them in this way. Teo snatched Su Weifeng's mobile phone, typed a paragraph of words quickly with his fingers and sent it. "Dear King, I miss you so much. I want to hug you and kiss you hard now." Su Weifeng's face suddenly turned black. Meng Keqing replied quickly, this must be from Teo Teo. It's a pity that it's not from Brother Su, otherwise I would be happier. Teo Teo immediately threw the phone to Su Weifeng, pouting and saying, sour, so sour, I never thought that Sister Keqing would be so spineless. Su Weifeng felt indescribably sweet at this moment. Meng Keqing was clearly deliberately saying sweet words to him. After hesitating for a while, Su Weifeng secretly glanced at Teo Teo, and seeing that she had her back to him, he quickly typed a line of words. Although it was sent by Teo Teo, it was also what I thought in my heart. There was a knock on the door, and Su Weifeng opened the door and walked out. He Xian came straight to Su Weifeng, took Su Weifeng's arm and said, you guys go. I will support Brother Su and Sister Teo Teo, no matter what they do. The He family has already kicked me out, so I'm no longer a member of the He family. You are my parents, and as a child, I will naturally do my best. But I will never interfere in the affairs of the He family, and I can't do it. Please don't embarrass me anymore. He said and looked embarrassed, then sighed, and had to say goodbye and leave. Chapter 536, 1 billion appearance fee. Su Weifeng's cell phone rang. It was He Yifei calling. Boy, don't you want me to kneel down and apologize to you? Okay, come on, I will apologize to you. Su Weifeng hung up the phone without saying a word. On the other side, He Yifei, who was holding the phone, froze in his expression. He wanted to show off to Su Weifeng, but he didn't talk to him at all. This was so frustrating. He gritted his teeth and could only call Su Weifeng again. After a long time, the phone was connected, and Su Weifeng's voice came directly from the other end. If you have something to say, say it. If you have something to say, fart it. He Yifei's mouth twitched violently for a few times, and then he said, boy, I'll wait for you here. Let's settle the new and old accounts together. Get lost. I'm not in a hurry to settle the accounts. After Su Weifeng finished speaking, he hung up the phone again. He Yifei was so angry that he threw his phone to the ground and shouted angrily, asshole, do you really think I have a good temper? This time I must make you unable to live or die, otherwise I will not be named He. After a tantrum, He Yifei had to pick up the phone. Bei Lang, the master, was unwilling to go to the hotel to kill Su Weifeng. He just asked He Yifei to invite Su Weifeng to fight. If Su Weifeng was not invited out, everything would be in vain. He really wanted to tie Su Weifeng up now, but if he could really do this, he would not need to ask a master like Bei Lang to do it. He Yifei gritted his teeth, suppressed his anger, and dialed Su Weifeng's number again. Every time the phone rang, He Yifei's anger became stronger. When he called others, basically few people would not answer the phone after more than 3 rings. But this time, there was a dead tone in the phone, and it was not connected. In the hotel room, Su Weifeng threw his phone aside and turned on silent mode. Tao Tao said with a smile, this guy is so persistent in calling you. What does he want to do? Su Weifeng laughed and said, what do you think? Tao Tao tilted his head and thought for a while, and said, this guy must have no good intentions, just ignore him. He Xian chuckled at this time and said, I think he must have broken several phones now. He doesn't have such a good temper. Su Weifeng smiled and said, your father can't make peace. He can't beg for mercy. Otherwise he should come directly to the hotel. He must still want to force it, but he needs me to leave. He Xian was startled and said, then I can't leave. Tao Tao said excitedly, that will be very interesting. Fighting is something I like to watch. How about this? You keep him in suspense for a while, and then we agree. Su Weifeng smiled and said, well, I also feel that I have tortured them enough, and this matter can be almost over. Tao Tao also felt a little bored and said, I thought I would encounter some challenges, but I didn't expect their defense to be so rubbish. This is only in China. If it were abroad, they would have been stripped of their underwear. Su Weifeng's phone lit up again, and he slowly picked up the phone and answered it. Su Weifeng, don't hang up. This time, He Yifei's tone was already pleading. What's the matter? Tell me. Su Weifeng's voice was cold. He Yifei was angry in his heart, but he dared not show it in his tone, and said, Su Weifeng, don't you want to resolve this matter? Su Weifeng said slowly, no. This is not something I want to resolve. I can fight you till the end of time, but it won't take that long. I estimate that in a few more days, your he family will be removed from Yulen's big family, so it's you who want to resolve it, not me. Yes, it's me who wants to resolve it. I have a way now. Aren't you a good fighter? I hired someone who is also a good fighter. If you win, I will do everything according to your words. That's a good idea, He Yifei said excitedly. You agreed? Su Weifeng said, but why should I agree? He Yifei said anxiously, didn't you say this is a good idea? Su Weifeng said nonchalantly, I said it's a good method, but I didn't say I would agree to you. What do you want to agree to? He Yifei almost went berserk, but at least he suppressed his anger in the end. What should I do? Su Weifeng deliberately pondered for a moment, and when He Yifei was about to collapse, he slowly said, if this is a competition, then I have to get an appearance fee. How much do you want? He Yifei asked hurriedly, and he couldn't help but feel relieved. 1 billion, not a penny less. When the money arrives, come back to me. After saying that, Su Weifeng simply hung up the phone. 1 billion. He Xian was speechless, completely shocked by this number. Teo chuckled and said, Xian, do you think they will give it? He Xian's mouth twitched and said, this is too much. I really don't know if they will give it. Teo said, they will definitely give it. First, they can't afford to waste time. If they delay for 2 more days, their loss will not be a matter of 1 billion. There is also the status of the He family in Yulin. Another point is that they should think they are sure enough to defeat Brother Weifeng this time. If they give the money first, it is obvious that they can take it back directly. He Xian said in a panic, since they are so sure, Brother Su should not go. What if there is danger? Teo chuckled and said, that's because they think they are sure. He Xian looked at Su Weifeng's relaxed face, and her heart seemed to relax all of a sudden. Although she had only been with Su Weifeng for a little over a day, Su Weifeng could handle everything easily. It seemed that, no matter how difficult the matter was, it would become simple when it came to him. Everything was under his control. Tao tapped the keyboard a few times, then curled her lips and said, your He family is not that great. You can't even take out 1 billion yuan, and you have to borrow from others. He Xian's face darkened again. That was 1 billion yuan. How come in Tao's eyes, it was just a small amount of money? Isn't Tao's vision too high? Does that mean that Tao's background is also quite extraordinary? Thinking about how powerful Su Weifeng is, the person who is with Su Weifeng must also be an extraordinary person, so she suddenly felt that it was very normal. Chapter 537, without moving a hand. At about midnight, Su Weifeng and his friends drove to a small park in the suburbs. It was late at night, and except for the dim lights of the street lamps, no one could be seen on the road. However, in an open space in the grove of trees in the park, several people were standing. He Zixi, He Yifei, and Meng Liana were standing next to He Yifei. There was also a man standing under the shadow of a tree with his hands behind his back. This matter involved the reputation of the He family. Normally, outsiders should not be involved. Seeing Meng Liana here was naturally a surprise to Su Weifeng. In fact, He Yifei wanted to vent his anger too much, and wanted others to see how he dealt with Su Weifeng, so he brought Meng Liana here. At most, he could recruit this woman as his own woman in the future. Although he could not give her a name, she would be satisfied. Seeing Su Weifeng, Tao, and He Xian coming, He Yifei was relieved, and then a wave of anger rose. Haha. He Yifei laughed loudly first, then took 2 steps forward, his chest puffed out, his hands behind his back, showing a proud look of having everything under control, and said, I never thought, Su Weifeng, you really dare to come. Tao chuckled and said, you even paid 100,000 for your appearance fee, how can we not come? He Yifei sneered and said, don't you feel that these 10 billion are very hard to handle? Tao still chuckled and said, no, we are very comfortable with it. There are idiots giving us money, why shouldn't we take it? Meng Liana rushed forward at this time, feeling that it was more appropriate for a woman like her to talk to Tao at this time, so that she could show herself off, and shouted loudly, where did you come from, you wild girl, and you are qualified to talk nonsense with Mr. He here, go wherever you want. Tao looked Meng Liana up and down, then shook his head, curled his lips, and said, I really don't understand. You are just a little star. Why don't you just act properly and get involved in this kind of thing? Meng Lian Na's face suddenly became quite embarrassed, which directly pointed out that her identity, Meng Lian Na, was not qualified to be here. This made Meng Lian Na even more angry, and she gritted her teeth and said, "Humph, do you think you are great? Do you think you have a high status? But from today on, all of this is gone. If you fall into the hands of Mr. He, you will lose everything, and then you will be worse than a dog in front of me." Tao Tao looked at Meng Lian Na with a sympathetic look and said, "You women are really crazy, or you are very stupid, alas." He Yifei snorted, stopped Meng Lian Na from talking more, and stared at Su Weifeng and said, "Boy, do you think you are so strong that even the 3 masters of our family are not your opponents?" Su Weifeng looked at the man standing under the shade of the tree and nodded silently. "That's because we didn't send out the strongest expert. Mr. Beilang, who came back from a mercenary group abroad, has participated in several missions and killed countless people. So, do you still have the courage to do it? Really?" Su Weifeng said lightly. As soon as Su Weifeng's voice came out, the man who was standing under the tree turned around suddenly. Then he rushed to He Yifei's side. He Yifei laughed and said, "Mr. Beilang, it's this kid. He is really rampant. Are you eager to deal with him?" Beilang looked at Su Weifeng motionlessly. His eyes were hesitant and more of a suppressed excitement. "Mr. Beilang, please take action and break this kid's limbs. He wants me to kneel down and apologize. I want him to kneel in front of me for the rest of his life. And that little girl, I want to play in front of her all the time. Haha, I must piss him off to death." "Really?" Su Weifeng said 2 words again. The hesitation in Beilang's eyes disappeared instantly. Then he shouted loudly, "Kneel down." He Yifei laughed and shouted at Su Weifeng, "Did you hear me? I told you to kneel down. Asshole." Beilang suddenly roared again and kicked out, hitting He Yifei's calf heavily. There seemed to be 2 crisp sounds, and He Yifei suddenly screamed, and then he knelt on the ground with a plop. He was about to fall, but Beilang's hand suddenly grabbed his shoulder. "Asshole, if the master tells you to kneel, you have to kneel. If you want to lie down, there is no way." The sudden situation completely frightened Zixi, and he was also completely confused. Fortunately, he was also a person of character, and he hurriedly said, "Mr. Beilang, what are you doing? Humph, we are really looking for death. We dare to cause trouble for the master. The master must be disdainful of you. You are not done yet. Then I will take action on behalf of the master and teach you a good lesson. This. Zixi's mouth twitched, and he stammered, "The master you are talking about, is he?" He pointed at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng looked at Beilang, then directly pulled Teo, and he Xian and turned away. Beilang hurriedly said, "Send the master away. I will deal with these ignorant people first, and then go to apologize to the master later." "No need." Su Weifeng waved his hand and disappeared into the darkness in an instant. The air in the open space seemed to become weird all of a sudden. "Mr. Beilang. Mr. Beilang. It hurts. It hurts." He Yifei was so shocked that he forgot the pain just now, and now he screamed again. Beilang looked at He Yifei fiercely and said, "It hurts. I will make it more painful for you." "What did you say just now? Do you want to break your arms and legs?" "Ah. No, I was just saying it casually." He Yifei immediately understood what Beilang meant and shook his head to deny it. However, Beilang did not listen to his advice at all. He broke He Yifei's arm with 2 palms. Zixi wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Even if he wanted to stop him, he didn't have the ability. "Mr. Beilang, you." Beilang snorted and said, "You have offended the gentleman. From now on, Beilang and you will have no friendship." After that, he strode away. He's villa. All the senior executives of the He family gathered in the lobby of the main villa. He Yifei had been sent to the hospital, but the faces of the others were extremely ugly. He Zinan, the second son of the He family, stared at Zixi with wide eyes and shouted in disbelief, "Third son, you mean that Beilang didn't fight with Su Weifeng and he broke Yifei's arms and legs directly?" Zixi was also depressed and crazy and said, "I don't understand why it is like this. Beilang should know Su Weifeng, and he speaks to him with respect, calling him sir." After a pause, Zixi said again. I feel that Mr. Bearlang is not only respectful, but also quite scary. Chapter 538. These two crazy girls. Afraid? How is that possible? Bearlang just came back from the mercenary group. He has carried out many dangerous missions in there, and many people have died under his command. How could he be afraid? Zidan, the second son of the He family, roared angrily. Zidan took a deep breath at this time, first scanned the faces of the people in the family, then looked at the old man, and slowly said, Father, from the perspective of Bearlang, it shows a problem, that is, he is stronger and more dangerous than Bear language. After a pause, Zidan said, in my contact with Su Weifeng tonight, I already felt that this person must be extraordinary. He is definitely not as simple as shown in the information. Moreover, I also found that his female companion Tao Tao had several computers in front of her, which means that the one who launched the attack on our family was probably herself. Such a pair of men and women are definitely not ordinary people. I even suspect that there is a more powerful background behind them. If we still wrestle with them, we can only suffer greater losses. The old man of the He family said somewhat dejectedly. Bearlang was unwilling to take action, and he also helped him to cripple Yifei. If we continue to fight, I'm afraid that Bearlang will turn against us. After a pause, the old man of the He family swept his eyes over everyone, then sighed and said, from today on, Zidan, you will take the position of chairman of the He group. Zidan and Zix's faces froze. The old man's words meant that they had failed. The conservative Zidan finally got the old man's approval. From then on, Zidan was the real person in charge of the He family. Zidan's face suddenly showed joy, but he immediately suppressed it and said, Father, this matter has not been resolved yet. The old man waved his hand and said, how to solve the rest depends on you. If you can't lead the He family through this crisis, how can you lead the He family? Zidan took a deep breath and said, yes, I will definitely handle this matter well. The old man nodded, and then walked straight upstairs. But in everyone's eyes, the old man's pace seemed to be much slower than usual, and his back was hunched, as if the whole person had aged by a dozen years in an instant. Zidan waited until the old man disappeared from everyone's sight, before he turned his attention to other people and said, second brother, go to the hospital now, and record a video of him apologizing. Zidan immediately said angrily, Yifei is already injured like this, and you still have to apologize to him? Zidan snorted, with a momentum that he never had before, and said without question, he must apologize. He caused this matter. If he hadn't been rude, how could he have gotten into this matter? The person who tied the bell must untie it. He must do this, otherwise his right to manage the game company will be taken back. Anger flashed on Zidan's face. He opened his mouth but held back. The old man had made it very clear that Zidan was now the most powerful person in the family. There would be absolutely no benefit in confronting the eldest brother head on. Finally, he sighed, nodded and said, okay, I'll go now. Zidan said again, Zibi, go find some things, especially for girls, and give them to Tao Tao as gifts later. Zibi left immediately and happily. He was still very excited. He had always had the same idea as his elder brother. If his elder brother took power, his position in the He family would also rise. Then Zidan made some arrangements and then left. In the hotel, Tao Tao no longer attacked the He family. In the current situation, if she did nothing, the He family would need most of the day to recover. Who is that guy who called you sir? How come he turned against you right after seeing you? Haha, the He family certainly didn't expect this. The expert they invited didn't even dare to make a move. Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, we just met before, and they owe me a favor. Tao Tao said, the He family must have no temper now, especially He Yifei, whose legs were broken, so there's nothing to play with. Su Weifeng nodded and said, that's right, this matter is almost over. We also made 1 billion, which is not bad. Tao Tao said with a smile, yes, it's really enough. He yawned and said, I'm so sleepy, I'm going to take a shower first, and then go to bed. When I come back, in this situation, the He family can no longer cause trouble, so Su Weifeng went to open another room, and settled He Xian down. This time, after he finished treating He Xian, and got up to leave a little, He Xian did not wake up suddenly like yesterday. But when Su Weifeng left, He Xian still opened her eyes. He Xian really didn't want Su Weifeng to leave. In the past 2 days, as long as she stayed by Su Weifeng's side, her mental state was very good. But after leaving Su Weifeng, it wouldn't take long for her to be like before, unable to get excited about anything, or the manifestation of depression. But she also understood that she had made some progress, although the progress was still small, but at least she could see the hope of being cured. Su Weifeng returned to the suite, but Teo hadn't slept yet. She was wearing a set of pajamas, lying on the bed, and calling Meng Keqing. Weifeng, come here quickly. Teo called Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng came to the bedside, and Teo waved again, saying, come on, your woman is video chatting with me. You just want to chat for a few words? Su Weifeng coughed lightly, and still lay down next to Teo, and greeted Meng Keqing in the camera. Teo put her arms around Su Weifeng's neck, so that both of their heads were squeezed into the camera, and said with a smile, Keqing, I didn't lie to you. We two are sleeping together. Otherwise, why would he come here so late? Meng Keqing chuckled, raised her fist, and clenched it hard, and said, come on, Weifeng, teach this little girl a lesson, and make her listen to you obediently. Haha. Now he listens to me. Don't you understand? In this regard, women are much better than men. He is not my opponent at all. I don't believe it. Otherwise you guys show me now. I'll see who is better. Okay, come on, Weifeng, let's show her. We can't let her underestimate me. As she spoke, Teo pretended to kiss Su Weifeng. Chapter 539. Breaking the skill. Su Weifeng tried to push Tao away, but he didn't know how he did it. Anyway, I swear to God, Su Weifeng really didn't have this subjective intention. But in reality, Su Weifeng's hand was on the source of Tao's sin. Wow. Tao screamed, and then shook off Su Weifeng's hand. Puff. Meng Keqing on the opposite side laughed and said, you broke down all of a sudden? Tao's face was flushed red, and he suddenly rushed over, directly riding on Su Weifeng's back, waving his little fist, and hitting Su Weifeng's back. You bastard, you took advantage of me. I'm going to fight you. Su Weifeng felt guilty and let her hit him with his hands behind his head. He still had to say to Meng Keqing, Keqing, I really didn't mean it just now. Meng Keqing smiled and said, it's okay, you did it on purpose. This girl is just mean-spirited. The more proactive you are, the more nervous she will be. It's fun to see you punish her. Teo stopped and gasped for breath. She put her elbows on Su Weifeng's shoulders and said to the screen with gritted teeth, Sister Keqing, you are so heartless. You don't need friendship, now that you have man. Meng Keqing smiled and said, I don't have friendship yet. I've shared all my men with you. Do you still have such a reliable friendship as mine? Now that you mention it, it seems to be right. Then I'll do him tonight. As she said that, the girl stretched her arms to the side and actually lay on Su Weifeng's back. Su Weifeng was speechless. This girl was really speechless. When she took the initiative, she was fine. But no matter whether Su Weifeng took the initiative or was surprised, she would immediately react with fear and scream. Okay, then you guys go quickly. I have something else to do. I won't watch your performance. When we get together later, you can perform live. After saying that, Meng Keqing blew Su Weifeng another kiss and hung up the video. Oh my god, it hung up so quickly. It must be jealous. Teo laughed proudly. Su Weifeng couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed and said, my aunt, can you get down? No, I'm going to do you now. What? Do you want to scream? Even if you scream your throat out, no one will save you at this time. Ah. With a scream, Su Weifeng pushed Teo down, then jumped off the bed, turned around and walked out of the room. Tao turned over in bed, then laughed. Not bad, not bad. No wonder Sister Keqing likes it. I like it now too. The scene of bungee jumping with Su Weifeng that day suddenly popped up in her mind. Her face suddenly turned red as if bleeding, and her eyes were watery. She suddenly hugged the quilt tightly and buried her head in it. The next day, the He family came to apologize with sincerity in the morning. Looking at the miserable look of He Ifei in the video, Tao's anger finally subsided, and the matter was over. He said again, Mr. Su, Miss Teo, if you two are in Yulin, if there is anything that can be done by the He family, just tell us. We will do our best. Su Weifeng said lightly. No need, we can handle our own affairs. He Zedong said hurriedly. I know Mr. Su's ability, and our He family can't help much, but if there are some things like running errands, our He family can do it. He Zedong put his attitude so low that Su Weifeng couldn't say anything more. After a few more polite words, the He family left. He Xian's face was a little strange. Tao Tao asked, what did your mother say to you again? She wants you to be my brother Weifeng's concubine again. He Xian was startled and said hurriedly, Sister Tao Tao, you misunderstood. My mother didn't tell me this. She said that she has a very high status in the He family now, and no one dares to treat her like before. If Brother Su and Sister Tao Tao have any inconveniences, let me call her, and my mother will let the He family handle it. Tao Tao smiled and said, it's up to you. Anyway, you don't have to worry about him having too many women in the future. He Xian looked embarrassed, but she was getting more and more confused about the relationship between Tao Tao and Su Weifeng. The matter with the He family was over. As for how much the He family lost, Su Weifeng was too lazy to pay attention. He still had to find partners for a contract worth several million. When He Xian followed Su Weifeng to discuss the project with those CEOs, she really didn't know what to say. This person asked the He family for 1 billion yuan casually, and now he was talking to them with a smile for such a small amount of money. This was really weird. After 2 days of continuous talks, Su Weifeng was much smoother this time, and several parties have expressed their intention to cooperate. There was a lunch at noon, and the location was a restaurant near the film and television city. The three of them arrived a little earlier, and the other party had not arrived yet, so they waited in the lobby first. 2 people walked in, a man and a woman. The man was in his 30s, dressed in a suit, and had the style of a successful person. Su Weifeng knew the woman, who was Ning Yuling, his companion on the plane, when he came that day. Hey, uncle. Ning Yuling saw Su Weifeng and immediately came over to greet him happily. Su Weifeng also smiled and said, what a coincidence, I actually met you again. Seeing that there were 2 beauties besides Su Weifeng, Ning Yuling blinked her eyes and said mischievously, yes, yes, hey, uncle brought 2 beauties, so impressive. Su Weifeng laughed, and didn't intend to introduce Ning Yuling, saying, have you found your footing? Ning Yuling stuck out her tongue and said, it's not that easy. Yuling, who is this? The man who came with Ning Yuling looked at Su Weifeng. Ning Yuling hurriedly said, this uncle is a friend I met on the plane. I didn't expect to see him here. The man nodded and said, oh, then hurry up. Mr. Xian is waiting for you. If you keep Mr. Xian waiting for a long time, you will miss the opportunity that I finally helped you get. Obviously, he didn't want to get to know Su Weifeng. Ning Yuling waved to Su Weifeng and said, uncle, goodbye. The man walked inside with Ning Yuling, frowning, and saying, be careful outside. Don't make friends with men casually. You are going to be a star in the future. If there is any scandal, it will be very disadvantageous to you. No, just an ordinary friend. Ning Yuling explained hurriedly. Humph, you can't just make ordinary friends casually. You know what those tabloid reporters like to do most is to dig up your past. From now on, you must get my consent to make friends. Without my consent, you are not allowed to make friends casually. Su Weifeng frowned slightly. Ning Yuling actually went to promote him so quickly. Is the opportunity so easy to get? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 514 Ning Yuling's Choice. Although it felt inappropriate, Su Weifeng did not intervene. This was Ning Yuling's own choice. If you talk about any industry now, you may not have much talent, but you can succeed all of a sudden and earn a lot of money. That must be the profession of a star. So when children nowadays choose their future ideals, many want to be stars. As for scientists, doctors, writers and other professions that can make great contributions to human beings, they are less and less interested in doing them. In fact, many people would rather pay a huge price to fulfill their dream of being a star, just for that kind of illusory success. As for whether Ning Yuling is like this, it is not something Su Weifeng should care about. Soon, the two CEOs came over. Everyone was still chatting happily together, and they also had enough consensus on future cooperation. Su Weifeng's WeChat on his mobile phone rang. Su Weifeng took a look and found that it was sent by Ning Yuling. Su Weifeng frowned when he saw the content and said, "I'll go out for a while." "What's wrong?" Tao Tao felt something was wrong when he saw Su Weifeng's expression and asked immediately. Su Weifeng said, "My friend is in trouble. I'll go check it out." Tao Tao immediately stood up and said, "I'll go too." The two CEOs also stood up immediately and said, "Then let's go check it out together. We have some face in Yulen's place." They all stood up, and he Xian hurried to follow. Su Weifeng came to the door of a private room and pushed it open. There were 5 people in the room, 3 men and 2 women, one of whom was Ning Yuling. Ning Yuling's face was red at this time, and she was obviously drunk. When she saw Su Weifeng, she was overjoyed and jumped up. She ran over and grabbed Su Weifeng's arm and said, "Uncle, why are you here?" Ning Yuling said, while winking at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng knew what was going on when he saw this situation. These people must have been urging Ning Yuling to drink again and again, and their intentions towards Ning Yuling were becoming more and more obvious. Ning Yuling felt something was wrong, but she didn't dare to leave directly, so she asked him to take her away. Su Weifeng nodded and said, "You are so young, why are you drinking for no reason? Come with me now." Ning Yuling pretended to be wronged, then turned to those people and said, "Boss Wenny, Brother Wang, I'm so sorry." Brother Wang was the man who came with Ning Yuling. At this time, his face sank and he said, "Yuling, what are you doing? Isn't he the person you met on the plane? Now you are leaving with him, so do you want to quit this industry?" Ning Yuling's face suddenly changed, and her lips moved twice, wanting to speak, but nothing came out. However, President Wei snorted and said with an unhappy look on his face, "Miss Ning, it's really unkind of you to do this. I feel you are a good person and want to praise you well, but you didn't even accompany me for a drink. I'm not happy." Brother Wang said angrily, "With just one word from President Wei, you will never have another chance here. Do you know that I have spent so many connections to give you the opportunity to have dinner with President Wei, but you didn't even cherish it?" Ning Yuling bit her lip and said, "It's okay to drink, but. Tao Tao immediately shouted, "Ah, I get it. You are playing with unspoken rules. Do you want her to go to bed with you?" Everyone in the private room was more or less embarrassed, except for the boss and the agent. Everyone here knew about the unspoken rules tacitly, but no one would say it directly. Seeing the silence of those people, Ning Yuling's face suddenly became extremely ugly. She bit her lip hard and said, "I'm sorry, I still want to achieve my wish through my own efforts." Now that it has been revealed, the brother Wang is called Wang Daquan. He is an agent. At this time, his face sank and he said, "Ning Yuling, don't be ungrateful. We have signed a contract. You have to do what I arrange for you." Ning Yuling shook her head vigorously and said, No, I can't do this kind of thing." Wang Daquan snorted and said, "If you don't do things according to my safety, do you still want to be famous? I tell you, don't even want to be famous. You won't even have the qualifications to act." Su Weifeng frowned and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, why bother a little girl? It doesn't matter if she doesn't want to." Wang Daquan snorted and said, "What do? You don't need to care about our affairs." One of the bosses who came with Su Weifeng laughed at this time and said, "I'm Sun Zeng from Yonder Company. Ladies and gentlemen, please give me a little face and don't embarrass this little girl." President Wei glanced at Sun Zeng and said, "A small company like Yonder wants to intervene in Wei Xingwei's affairs?" Wei Xingwei? President Wei of Xiangxing Film and Television. Sun Zeng shouted in surprise. Wang Daquan snorted and said, "What do you think? President Wei wants to support this little girl. You should know what she means. Now this little girl is so ungrateful. I'm really angry." Wei Xingwei snorted and said, "Do you two still want to intervene in our affairs? Do you still think this is bullying her?" Sun Zeng and another CEO were embarrassed and quickly apologized to Wei Xingwei. Sun Zeng gently pulled Su Weifeng and said, "President Su, let's not intervene in this matter. President Wei has promoted many stars over the years. Now we are not helping this little girl, but ruining her future." Su Weifeng cast his eyes on Ning Yuling and said slowly, "What do you think? Do you want a future or follow me?" Ning Yuling's eyes were full of struggle at this time. Su Weifeng did not urge her, as this was related to a person's life choice. Wei Xingwei and Wang Daquan all looked relaxed. With their strength, any girl who wanted to be a star basically could not refuse their request. The two CEOs, Sun Zeng, also obviously thought that Ning Yuling should make such a choice. Only Tao Tao and He Xian looked at Ning Yuling with curiosity. They were very curious and looking forward to waiting for others to make important choices and wait for others to choose their lives. Ning Yuling was really entangled. After a full minute, she took a deep breath, then turned to look at Su Weifeng and said, "Uncle, if I go with you, will it cause you a lot of trouble?" Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment, then a smile appeared on his face, and he said, "Boss Wei is so powerful, I will definitely get into trouble." Chapter 541. Why are you like children? Heh, you are quite self-aware. Wei Xingwei nodded to Su Weifeng in appreciation. Sun Zeng and another CEO also breathed a sigh of relief. They were really afraid that Su Weifeng would confront Wei Xingwei. After all, Wei Xingwei's film and television company is quite famous in Yulin. Its strength is much greater than that of a small company like this, and its network of contacts is even wider. They can't afford to offend him. Ning Yuling also showed a bitter smile on her face, then turned to Wei Xingwei and said, "Boss Wei, thank you very much for your appreciation and thank you Wang Jingji for your help. Although I have the desire to be a star, I only hope that you can appreciate my personal ability rather than relying on my own body to win such an opportunity. I really can't accept this, so I ask Wang Jingji and Boss Wei to let me go." Wang Daquan and Wei Xingwei's faces both darkened. Wei Xingwei snorted and said coldly, "Forget it then. After all, he is also a figure. He will not do what he is doing now to force Ning Yuling. He still has to have some face." Wang Daquan snorted and said nothing. He had already thought about how to deal with Ning Yuling in the contract. At this time, Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes and said, "Although I said there would be trouble, I didn't say I was afraid of trouble." Sun Zeng hurriedly pulled Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng pretended not to know and said lightly, "I admire your backbone. If you want to develop, you can come to my company. I can't guarantee that I will make you famous, but I can guarantee that I will give you a chance." "Ah, Uncle you." Ning Yuling looked at Su Weifeng in surprise, but looked at Wei Xingwei worriedly. Wei Xingwei was too shameless to get angry with Ning Yuling, but when Su Weifeng spoke up, he got angry all of a sudden, slammed the table, stood up and shouted, "Boy, are you provoking me?" Su Weifeng said lightly, "It's not a provocation, but I really look down on your behavior. If someone wants to go to your bed, that's fine, but trying to force the girl to agree through such means is really despicable." Wei Xingwei said angrily, "You look down on me? Who do you think you are? Which company are you from?" Sun Zeng's mouth twitched, and he said, "Mr. Wei, this is Mr. Su Weifeng from Dream Film and Television Culture Company, from Yangcheng." Wei Xingwei frowned, then sneered and said, "Dream? I've never heard of it. Someone from such a small company is provoking me? This really doesn't take me, Wei Xingwei, seriously, and you really don't take our Xiangxing film and television seriously." Sun Zeng quickly pulled Su Weifeng and said, "Boss Su, let me introduce you to Boss Wei. He is the boss of Xiangxing Film and Television Company. Boss Wei is very senior in this company. If we can cooperate with Boss Wei, it will be a rare opportunity for us." When Wei Xingwei heard what Sun Zeng said, he felt more confident. He looked at Su Weifeng with disdain and said, "Boy, you want to get into the film and television industry in Yulin, but you are still meddling in front of me. Do you believe it or not? From now on, you will not be able to take a single step in Yulin." Ning Yuling hurriedly said at this time, "Boss Wei, this matter is my own business, and I will bear all the responsibilities alone." Then she turned to look at Su Weifeng, smiled far-fetchedly, and said, "Uncle, thank you for your kindness. You don't have to worry about this matter." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "I have already stepped forward. Even if I don't want to care, Boss Wei will not let me go, right?" Wei Xingwei snorted and said, "Humph, don't get in my way here. I'm too lazy to argue with you." Sun Zeng was overjoyed and said hurriedly, "Boss Wei, we won't bother you anymore." As he said that, he pulled Su Weifeng and wanted to leave. Su Weifeng turned around and left, but his hand suddenly grabbed Ning Yuling and walked straight to the door. "How dare you!" Wei Xingwei and Wang Daquan both slammed the table in anger. After saying this, Su Weifeng actually wanted to take Ning Yuling away. It was obvious that he really didn't take them seriously. Sun Zeng and Wang Daquan were about to cry at this time. How could Su Weifeng be so ungrateful? The two of them came with Su Weifeng. If Su Weifeng really offended Wei Xingli, the worst thing would be that he would not be able to develop in Yulin. After patting his butt and leaving, he could still continue to develop in Yangcheng. Wei Xingli didn't seem to be able to do anything to Su Weifeng, and their roots were in Yulin, so it was easy for Wei Xingli to vent his anger on the two of them. Then the impact they would suffer would be much greater. Sun Zeng hurriedly stopped and said to Su Weifeng with a bitter face, "Mr. Su, if this was your woman, or your relative or friend, it would be fine, but you just met by chance. Are you really like this for a little girl?" Su Weifeng said lightly, "Although making money is important, I feel that a girl's dignity is more important." Sun Zeng frowned and said, "But, this is not a matter of one or two business deals." Wei Xingli was completely angry at this time, and shouted, "You three guys, if you dare to take people away today, I, Wei Xingli, will never let it go. You'd better consider the consequences." Sun Zeng hurriedly said, "Mr. Wei, calm down. This Mr. Su has just come to Yulin, and doesn't know your strength. Young people are full of energy. Let us persuade him." Tao Tao said impatiently, Okay, you are really wasting time. Mr. Wei, don't blow your beard and glare here, as if you are so powerful. If you are not convinced, come back to us. As he said that, Tao Tao directly pulled Ning Yuling over and walked out while saying, "If you want to come to us, you'd better not use this kind of whining, like children quarreling. How boring. You can either directly find hundreds of thugs, or do something against the company. At least it will be a little convincing." Everyone's face was a little interesting at this time. Only Wei Xingli and Wang Daquan, their faces turned pale and angry, but they couldn't say a word at this time. Otherwise it would be like a child showing off. The two CEOs, Sun Zeng, were stunned and speechless. This little girl was too domineering, and she also found hundreds of thugs. "We are doing business, not gangsters." Until Su Weifeng walked out with the three girls, everyone was still looking at each other. The two CEOs didn't dare to leave, and hurried over to explain to Wei Xingli that, if they didn't continue the cooperation with Su Weifeng, they couldn't offend Wei Xingli. Su Weifeng and his friends walked out of the hotel, and got into a Mercedes-Benz G. Originally, when Su Weifeng came out of the He family that day, He Xian asked him to drive an ordinary BMW Mini, but the He family came to apologize, and directly sent a Mercedes-Benz G, to make it easier for Su Weifeng to do his work. Sitting in the car, Ning Yuling was speechless, not knowing whether to be thankful or panic. Chapter 542 Why are they all so awesome? Su Weifeng turned around, looked at Ning Yuling's flustered look, smiled slightly, and said, "What's the matter? Are you still afraid that I will run away for you? Then you can get off the car now." Ning Yuling shook her head, looked at Tao, then looked at Yixian, smiled bitterly, and said, "Uncle, I'm causing you trouble this time. We just took the same plane, and you offended a big boss for me. I really don't know how to thank you." Tao laughed and said, "Promise me your body." Ning Yuling blushed and said, "I'm not worth anything, sister, don't make fun of me." Tao still had a smiling expression and said, "Didn't a certain boss say that he would support you to become a star in the future? That would be valuable." Ning Yuling shook her head and said with a bitter smile, "I have offended Boss Wei, and I can't get along here in the future. Maybe my agent will ask me for compensation. How can I have any chance to be a star? The boss I'm talking about is not that fat guy. I'm talking about this." Tao pointed at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng rolled his eyes at Tao and said, "You just like to fool around, Xiaoning. You don't have to take it to heart. I just admire your backbone, and can't bear to see a girl like you fall into it." Ning Yuling said gratefully, "Thank you, uncle." Su Weifeng said again, "What do you want to do in the future?" Ning Yuling sighed and said, "In the future, I have to deal with Wang Jingji first. I guess he will use the contract to threaten me. If things go wrong, he will ask me to pay compensation." Alas, I was too young and thought that finding an agent would give me a chance to shoot movies in the future. I signed the contract without thinking. Su Weifeng said, "Don't worry about this. I just want to ask you, do you still want to develop in this field in the future? Of course I do. Ning Yuling answered without thinking, but immediately smiled bitterly and said, now, unless I sell myself, will I still have a chance? Teo squinted and said, do you regret it now? Ning Yuling shrugged her shoulders and said, I don't regret it, but I'm a little conflicted. Maybe this is the best opportunity in my life. It's just to sleep with someone. At most, I can sleep a few more times, and then I will have the opportunity to become a big star who makes a lot of money a year. Sigh. If you were asked to choose again, what would you choose? Tao asked curiously. Ning Yuling did not hesitate this time and said, I would still choose this way. It may not be a big deal, but I really can't accept it. Being close to a man I don't like. I feel sick when I think about it. As she spoke, Ning Yuling's mouth twitched involuntarily. Teo immediately patted Su Weifeng's shoulder hard and said, I'll leave this matter to you. Make her a star. Su Weifeng said, it's not that easy to make a star. It depends on the ability and luck. Teo rolled his eyes at Su Weifeng and said, if one movie doesn't make her popular, then make 2. If 2 movies still don't make her popular, then make 3. Anyway, if you don't make her popular, I'll never let you go. Su Weifeng said with a smile. Okay, I'll support her. I dare not mess with you. If you slander me, I'll be in trouble. It's good that you know. Teo raised his chin proudly, and then said to Ning Yuling, don't worry, leave this matter to him. I guarantee you will become a star. Ning Yuling was stunned, and said after a while, are you kidding? Su Weifeng couldn't help but burst out laughing when he heard it, and Teo rolled his eyes in anger and said, you little girl, you actually doubt us. Ning Yuling hurriedly said, no, but that. Su Weifeng smiled and said, it's normal to be suspicious. Let me explain to you. I also run a film and television company, but it's not in Yulin. I'm in Yangcheng. The investment is just over 200 million. It was established not long ago, and now it's time to hire people. You can follow me back to Yangcheng to develop. Uncle, are you really doing this? Ning Yuling shouted excitedly. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, I remember someone didn't believe me at the beginning. Ning Yuling said awkwardly, you didn't explain it at that time. I told you. You don't believe it either. Su Weifeng chuckled. Ning Yuling stuck out her tongue. It seems so. Okay, then I'll go with you, uncle. The whole person suddenly became energetic. Tao said jokingly, aren't you afraid that some uncle will sell you out and then try to trick you into bed? Ning Yuling looked at Tao, then at Yixian, and winked mischievously, saying, how could an uncle like a little girl like me when there are 2 prettier girls like you two? Tao chuckled and said, you are really a lovely little girl. At this time, Sun Zeng called. Sun Zeng was about to cry, and said, Boss Su, please come back and save us. Our company's roots are here, and we can't afford to offend a big ship like Xiangxing. Su Weifeng immediately said straightforwardly, give the phone to that boss Witty. After a pause of more than 10 seconds, Sun Zeng's voice came again. He didn't answer. He said if you want to talk, just go to him and talk. Su Weifeng snorted and said, okay, then I'll ask someone else to talk to him. After that, he hung up the phone. When Su Weifeng was on the phone, Ning Yuling was also on the phone. Wang Jingji, you can't do this. I just graduated. How can I have money? Su Weifeng reached out and snatched Ning Yuling's phone, saying, don't pay attention to him. Then he hung up. Uncle, he said he would sue me. Ning Yuling said with a bitter face. It's okay. Then Su Weifeng looked at Yixian and said, call your father and ask him to deal with the matter of Wei Xingwei of Xiangxing Film and Television. Yixian nodded, but instead of calling, she directly typed a WeChat message and sent it out. Yixian had been sitting in the back row with Ning Yuling, but Ning Yuling had somewhat ignored Yixian's existence because this girl didn't say a word, and her silence made people ignore her existence. The whole thing was Su Weifeng and Tao talking, so Ning Yuling also subconsciously thought that Yixian was just an ordinary girl, and she didn't have any ability, so she couldn't get a word in. But who knew that Su Weifeng actually asked Yixian to solve this matter at this time? Then who is this Yixian? Su Weifeng started the car and said, Zioning, where do you live? I'll take you back, and then you can consider whether to develop in my place. Don't worry, I can help you solve the problems here. Even if you want to develop here, there will be no obstacles. Chapter 543, one phone call, and it's all done. Before the car arrived at Ning Yuling's residence, Wang Jingji called Ning Yuling first. Zioning. Wang Daquan on the phone, greeted her in a flattering and fawning manner. Ning Yuling subconsciously glanced at Yixian next to her, and then said softly, Wang Jingji, please speak. I'm the bastard. I apologize to you, Zioning. Look, I have been taking care of you these days. Although I did this stupidly, my starting point is to make you famous. The person who introduced you is indeed in the film and television industry and really wants to promote you. Can you let me go? Let you go? Ning Yuling subconsciously raised her voice a few degrees. She was completely frightened by these 3 words. An agent actually let her go. How could she be so capable? Ning Yuling's voice frightened Wang Daquan. He thought Ning Yuling was questioning him, so he said quickly, Zioning, it's all my fault. It's not easy for me to get by in a year. Can I compensate you? I can still get hundreds of thousands of dollars. Please let me go. Ning Yuling finally understood what Wang Daquan meant at this time. She felt an indescribable feeling in her heart and stammered, no, just terminate our contract. Wang Daquan said quickly, no problem, absolutely no problem. I'll tear up the contract later. No, I'll send it to you. Then if there's nothing else, I'll hang up here? Ning Yuling asked cautiously. Wang Daquan said quickly, no, Mr. Wei wants to say a few words to Mr. Su. Can you help? Ning Yuling quickly pressed the microphone and said to Su Weifeng, Uncle, Mr. Wei wants to talk to you. Su Weifeng said, no, just talk to him. Ning Yuling hesitated. It's okay. Su Weifeng said lightly, just be tough. If you want to make any requests, just ask. Ning Yuling's mouth twitched, and after hesitating for a while, she put the phone to her ear again. If Mr. Wei has anything to say, let him tell me. My uncle is not convenient to answer the phone. Ning Yuling still said it tactfully. There was a slight silence over there, and Wei Xingluo's voice came. There was still a kind of panic in the voice, and he even stuttered a little and said, Miss Ning, I really didn't know that you were so powerful. I hope you will be magnanimous and don't bother with people like me. The expression on Ning Yuling's face suddenly became extremely wonderful. Wang Daquan's attitude just now had already shocked her, but she never thought that a person like Wei Xinglu would actually plead with such an attitude. Even if Su Weifeng and the others knew more powerful people, in Ning Yuling's mind, it seemed that they just wanted to make peace, and then neither side would pursue it, and the matter would be over. But who knew that now not only Wang Daquan admitted his fault, but also Wei Xinglu did the same. Moreover, from his attitude, she could fully feel that she was in a state of panic. Miss Ning, I was blinded by greed and dared to have improper thoughts about you. I even dared to have ideas about Mr. Su's woman. I'm really a piece of shit. Slap. At this time, 2 crisp slaps came from the phone. This frightened Ning Yuling so much that she trembled and forgot to answer. She looked at Su Weifeng who was driving, and then at Yixian next to her. Su Weifeng was still driving without any reaction, and Yixian still looked like she was not interested in anything. Miss Ning, I know I was wrong. As long as you are happy, I can call you mom. Ning Yuling didn't say anything. Wei Xinglu over there was about to cry at this time. Fortunately, Ning Yuling finally came to her senses and said quickly, no, it's not necessary, it's not necessary. Ms. Ning, I will compensate you right away. I will compensate you right away. I will give you 1 million. What do you think? Ning Yuling was even more frightened and trembled, and said, no, you don't need to compensate. Just let Wang Jingji terminate the contract with me. Is it that simple? Wei Xinglu asked suspiciously. Of course. Ning Yuling hurriedly said, since you have apologized, let's forget about it. What about Mr. Su? Wei Xinglu asked stutteringly. Su Weifeng said lightly at this time, I don't care, just do it, if you think it's okay. Ning Yuling even ignored her mobile phone, and didn't turn on the speakerphone. How did Su Weifeng hear the voice on her phone? He said quickly, Mr. Su won't care. Wei Xinglu breathed a sigh of relief and said, that's right. How could a big shot like Mr. Su be so petty as me? Miss Ning, if you need me in the future, just say a word and I, Wei Xingli, will do anything to help you. Then I'd like to thank Mr. Wei first. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up. After hanging up the phone, Ning Yuling's eyes swept over the three people one by one, and the corners of her mouth twitched. Su Weifeng asked He Xian to solve it, and He Xian just sent a WeChat message. In less than 20 minutes, the matter was solved, and it was obvious that Wei Xingli and Wang Daquan were both frightened. It can be seen that the person He Xian found must be a very powerful person. And who are these three people? Ning Yuling felt her heart pounding nervously. Teo turned around and asked with a smile, seeing you look like this, are you scared? Ning Yuling shrank her neck and said, it's really scary. In my heart, Boss Wei is already such a great man. You actually made a phone call and made him apologize to me like a grandson. I don't know what to say. The car stopped at the gate of the community where Ning Yuling lived. Ning Yuling took a deep breath and said, thank you, uncle, and thank you, sisters. Su Weifeng waved his hand and said, I'll be leaving almost tomorrow. You'd better make a decision today. Of course, you can come to me later. Ning Yuling nodded and said, thank you, uncle. I will think about it carefully. Ning Yuling got out of the car. Teo said with a smile, you are amazing. You go out for a trip and bring 2 girls back. Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, Xian is here to treat her illness. Yuling said it's not acceptable. Even if it's acceptable, she's just an employee of the company. Teo curled her lips and said, uncle, you call me so affectionate. Don't you mean just like this tone? Otherwise, I'll call you Dad. Su Weifeng almost rushed to the steering wheel. If Teo made a fuss and she said she was first, no one would dare to say second. Chapter 544 Bringing Li Xian home. That night, Ning Yuling sent a message to Su Weifeng. Uncle, if it weren't for you today, I really don't know what would have happened. It's you who let me keep my hope for life, and it's you who let me keep the innocence of a girl. Knowing your strength, going to your place to develop, may be the best way for me to take a shortcut, but I think about it, without going through the wind and rain, there is no rainbow. If I go to your place, I may be a canary in a cage. Oh, I'm not saying that uncle will support me, but I can feel that you will take care of me, and then I will miss a lot of opportunities to hone my skills. So, I still want to try my luck here in Yulin. If I don't make any progress after 2 years, I will go to you again, and you can just give me a meal. Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile. Ning Yuling's choice was the one he admired the most. Su Weifeng simply replied, I look forward to the day when you become a star. Thank you, uncle. Ning Yuling replied immediately, and then added a picture of a flying kiss. After treating Li Xian, Su Weifeng quietly got up. The treatment in the past few days was still effective. He Xian was able to fall asleep after his treatment. Although she didn't sleep so soundly, she was much better than before. When he returned to his room, he saw several notifications on his WeChat. One of them was from Teo. I'm leaving. I'll eat you up next time I see you. There was also a little tiger following behind with a vicious look. Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile, and he was a little reluctant in his heart. Then I'll wait for you. Su Weifeng also replied with a joke. Teo's message was replied immediately. You are provoking me. Do you think I don't dare? If you don't dare, then I will eat you. Wow. Haha, you are amazing. You wait for me. I must take a screenshot of this sentence and show it to your wife later. Su Weifeng chatted with Teo for a few words, and his mood was indescribably relaxed. Then Teo directly sent a picture of getting on the plane, and the two stopped chatting. The next evening, Su Weifeng and He Xian returned to Yangcheng. Su Weifeng didn't ask anyone to pick him up. He just took a taxi and took He Xian back to his villa. At the door, He Xian seemed quite nervous. It's okay, my family is very warm. Su Weifeng said with a smile, then opened the door and walked in. There was no one in the living room, but the lights were on, and there were a lot of shoes on the shoe cabinet at the door. Obviously there were a lot of people at home. Bang! A crisp sound came from the entertainment room at the end of the first floor. Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile, and said to He Xian, you sit down first, I'll go see them first. When he opened the door of the entertainment room, he saw 4 beauties playing the Great Wall there. Brother Su. Sun Yumeng and Zhao Xiaoshu stood up quickly and greeted Su Weifeng happily. Lin Zhuangxuan and Qiao Yushan directly blocked the cards with their hands and said, "Sit down quickly and don't peek." Su Weifeng couldn't help but widen his eyes and said, "No way, are you playing so seriously?" Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said, "Yeah, Xiaoshu and Yumeng were too lucky, we all lost badly." Qiao Yushan said, "Just do what you should do, our night has just started." Su Weifeng's face was a little dark, and he said, "I'm too valued and injured." Zhao Xiaoshu and Sun Yumeng were a little panicked, but Qiao Yushan said contemptuously, "Why are you injured? You are having a good time outside, and you are still thinking about coming back." Su Weifeng came over and pressed Qiao Yushan's shoulders twice, saying, "Look at what you said, my wife. I'm going out to work and make some money to support the family." Lin Zhuangxuan glanced at Su Weifeng and said, "How much did you make this time? Eat carefully, I will hear it." Su Weifeng said nonchalantly, "I just made 1 billion. Oh, only 1 billion. PFFT, 1 billion. Lin Zhuangxuan didn't care at first, then sighed, then grinned, and then changed his expression to not care. Qiao Yushan, Sun Yumeng, and Zhao Xiaoshu all had a shocked expression, but soon they became like Lin Zhuangxuan. It seems that it is unspeakably easy for Su Weifeng to make money. There are always those blind people who come to provoke him and then let him rip off. This time, it is obvious that he ripped off a big customer again. Otherwise ordinary people would not have 1 billion for him to rip off. People with this strength will not be easily ripped off by others. Only a pervert like Su Weifeng has such ability. I lost. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly pushed the cards and shouted excitedly, "Haha, Weifeng is back and brought me good luck. Give me money, give me money." Su Weifeng smiled and said, "I brought one back. You guys should go and say hello this time, otherwise it will seem that we are too unenthusiastic." Qiao Yushan rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng and said, "You are really amazing. Now you even bring someone home." Su Weifeng brought Yixian back, so he must say hello to them, so these people knew it. At this time, they did not feel guilty, and brought the 4 people to the living room. When Yixian saw these 4 beautiful women, she was at a loss for a moment, lowered her head, and did not dare to look at anyone. Qiao Yushan and others knew that Yixian had severe depression, so they did not joke or anything. Qiao Yushan said politely, "Missy, I know you are coming to my house for treatment, so you don't have to feel restrained. You can stay here during the treatment." Su Weifeng quickly introduced, "This is my wife Qiao Yushan. Hello, sister-in-law." Yixian quickly saluted, "I'm sorry to bother you." Lin Zhuangxuan said, "You don't have to be polite here. By the way, do you know how to play mahjong?" Yixian looked at Lin Zhuangxuan and was a little confused. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately introduced herself, "I'm Lin Zhuangxuan, Qiao Yushan's cousin." Yixian quickly greeted again, "Hello, Sister Zhuangxuan." Lin Zhuangxuan said with a smile, "Okay, you haven't answered me yet. Do you know how to play mahjong?" Yixian said nervously, "I haven't played it before, but I seem to understand a little." Lin Zhuangxuan said, "Okay, we'll practice with you later, and you'll be able to get the hang of it soon. This way, when my sister is not at home, we can also play a game." After chatting for a few more sentences, Su Weifeng could already feel that Yixian's face was a little pale. Going to a strange place, and also to Su Weifeng's relatives, made Yixian very nervous, afraid that she would say something wrong and make the other party unhappy. This kind of pressure was much stronger than eating with others. Su Weifeng also saw that Yixian was a little overwhelmed, so he took Yixian to arrange a room. Chapter 545. Something seems wrong. Arranged a room for Yixian. Su Weifeng put his hand on Yixian's head, and after a while, Yixian's face returned to normal. After hesitating for a while, Yixian said, "Brother Su, how about I stay in a hotel later? That's not very convenient. I have to run to the hotel, and there are enough rooms in our house. Usually there are not many people at home, and everyone has to go to work, so you can stay here." Yixian said, "I'm worried that it will make my sister-in-law unhappy. After all, I'm a stranger. I always feel that it is not appropriate to bring me home like this." Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "Your sister-in-law is not so stingy. For example, Sun Yumeng and Zhao Xiaoshu, who are employees of our company, always live in my house now. Oh. They are employees of your company. I thought they had some special relationship. Su Weifeng was a little embarrassed, but there was no need to explain this kind of relationship to He Xian. Please pack up now. I will treat you in a while. He Xian said, you don't need to do it today. You just came home. Spend time with your family. They are having fun, and no one cares about me. The corners of He Xian's mouth twitched, and she seemed to want to laugh, which was an emotion rarely seen in He Xian. Su Weifeng smiled and said, do you feel sorry for me? He Xian nodded embarrassedly and said, a little bit. I didn't expect that a hero like Brother Su seemed to have no status at home. Su Weifeng laughed and said, there is no way. These women, one by one, have controlled me. Su Weifeng went out first, and He Xian washed up, but she was very puzzled. What is the relationship between the women here and Su Weifeng? What is the relationship between Teo and Su Weifeng? Teo also said that Su Weifeng has many women. Could these be? After Su Weifeng treated He Xian, he came to the entertainment room again and sat directly next to Qiao Yushan. But Zhao Xiaoshu and Sun Yumeng both bit their lips as if they were trying hard to hold back their giggles. Lin Zhuangxuan on the opposite side rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment, turned his head to look at Qiao Yushan next to him, and then looked at Lin Zhuangxuan on the opposite side, and was a little confused. Qiao Yushan and Lin Zhuangxuan were both wearing the same pajamas and the same hairstyle, so from a visual point of view, it was impossible to tell who was who. He thought the person next to him was Qiao Yushan, because he could tell from Qiao Yushan's tone when he came in just now, and now he directly thought that this person was Qiao Yushan. But from the expressions of Zhao Xiaoshu and Sun Yumeng, it was obvious that this was not Qiao Yushan, but Lin Zhuangxuan. Ahem. Su Weifeng said with a bit of a laugh, can you two not wear the same clothes? I can't tell who is who at all. Lin Zhuangxuan beside him immediately said to Qiao Yushan with a grumble, it's all your fault for winking at Weifeng, otherwise he would not have recognized it at once. Qiao Yushan said, it wasn't me who did it first, it was Xiaoshu and Yumeng who couldn't help it. Su Weifeng's face turned black, and he said, you four are so innocent. You haven't been home for a week, and it's a mess. It's dangerous. The four beauties all giggled. After laughing for a few sentences, everyone also asked about He Xian's situation. Su Weifeng had communicated with them about He Xian's basic situation before going home. Qiao Yushan said, it seems that her condition is not as serious as you said. Su Weifeng said, when she is with me, she will be much better. When I'm not with her, her condition will be much more serious. Lin Zhuangxuan rolled his eyes at Su Weifeng and said, you didn't do anything to that girl, did you? Qiao Yushan also looked at him with suspicion. Su Weifeng rolled his eyes at the two of them and said, this is a kind of dependence of the patient on the doctor, and it is also a manifestation of depression. Don't always say that the girls around me are related to each other. Then Su Weifeng talked about He Xian's symptoms in detail. Several people are kind-hearted people. After understanding the situation of depression, everyone also felt more sympathy for He Xian. It was about time, and the Majin game was also disbanded. Qiao Yushan and Su Weifeng returned upstairs. As usual, the two washed up and went to bed, chatting normally. Except that they did not do normal things after going to bed. Everything else was similar to normal couples. The next day, Su Weifeng got up early and went to the gym at home to exercise. Just as he was working hard, a man flashed in. He was wearing a tight fitness outfit, with his hands behind his back, and looked at Su Weifeng with a smile. Su Weifeng smiled and said, Zhuangxuan, it's rare that you get up so early to exercise with me. Lin Zhuangxuan was stunned for a moment, then raised his chin and said, is it not possible? I'm also considering exercising more. Haha, okay, then come and exercise together. Su Weifeng greeted with a smile. Lin Zhuangxuan nodded, walked to another treadmill, and started jogging. Su Weifeng was doing strength training next to him. He casually said, the situation in the company has been good these days, right? Those new people are not too difficult to manage, right? Lin Zhuangxuan said, it's okay. With Xiaoshu and Yumeng's help, it's still going smoothly. Has there been any movement from Xinyuhu recently? I don't think so. Lin Zhuangxuan hesitated. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, I shouldn't ask you about this. It's okay as long as he doesn't come to the company to make trouble. Then no. Lin Zhuangxuan replied quickly. Su Weifeng turned his head to look at Lin Zhuangxuan and felt that Lin Zhuangxuan's reaction today was a little strange. He stood up and walked to the treadmill and said, Zhuangxuan, is there something wrong with you? Why do I feel that you are a little strange? Am I? How could I be? Lin Zhuangxuan stiffened his neck and waved his hand. This time, he just clicked on the button to adjust the speed of the treadmill, and the belt under his feet instantly accelerated. Lin Zhuangxuan screamed and was thrown out all of a sudden, falling face down. How could Su Weifeng let Lin Zhuangxuan fall? He immediately flashed over and hugged Lin Zhuangxuan. Then he hugged her in his arms and said angrily, you, don't be careful. Lin Zhuangxuan didn't say anything, but just looked at Su Weifeng with burning eyes. Su Weifeng laughed and said, did you miss me? Then he lowered his head and kissed Lin Zhuangxuan on the lips. Lin Zhuangxuan's breathing suddenly became rapid. This reaction made Su Weifeng unable to bear it, and he kissed Lin Zhuangxuan on the lips. Chapter 546. It's a big deal to admit the wrong person. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan spent the most time together, and their intimacy was more casual. It was more than a week since they last met, and Su Weifeng certainly missed Lin Zhuangxuan very much. When they kissed, his hands also moved. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly cried out, and then pushed Su Weifeng away with force. Su Weifeng was shocked by Lin Zhuangxuan's strong reaction, and looked at Lin Zhuangxuan in confusion, and said, Zhuangxuan, what's wrong with you? Humph. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly crossed her arms in front of her chest, and looked at Su Weifeng coldly. Su Weifeng's heart suddenly skipped a beat. This action, and the reaction just now, this is not Lin Zhuangxuan, but Qiao Yushan. He mistook her for Lin Zhuangxuan just now, and kissing like this would undoubtedly admit that there were so many unclear situations between him and Lin Zhuangxuan. Yushan. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched, and the guilty feeling of being caught was really indescribable. Qiao Yushan snorted coldly and said, I have guessed that you two would be like this a long time ago, but you are still acting in front of me. Is this interesting? Su Weifeng said awkwardly. This? You don't have to say it. Qiao Yushan waved her hand directly. Her face became even colder, and said, I also told you that if you and Zhuangxuan want to be together, I support you. What I don't understand is why you still lied to me. Su Weifeng smiled bitterly and said, Zhuangxuan is quite entangled. She feels that she has robbed her sister's man. Qiao Yushan shook her head and said, the relationship between us is fake. I'm not your wife, and you are not my husband, so there is no snatching. This. Su Weifeng suddenly felt that it might not be a bad thing to open it up like this. He took a breath and said, I'm really sorry. I have been indecisive about this matter. Qiao Yushan took a deep breath, clenched her fist, and said, I don't blame Zhuangxuan, and I don't blame you for being together, but I really despise you now. Since you like Zhuangxuan and want to be with Zhuangxuan, then when you were with me, didn't you have any self-restraint? You even touched me. Are you worthy of Zhuangxuan? Su Weifeng was speechless. Humph. You scumbag. Qiao Yushan said, and turned and left. Su Weifeng sighed, and didn't chase after her. There was nothing to explain about this matter. But less than half a minute later, Qiao Yushan walked in again. She took a deep breath first, then glared at Su Weifeng and said, I don't want to make a big fuss about this matter. After all, it will be embarrassing for everyone if it is made public. I don't want to embarrass Zhuangxuan. For the time being, we still maintain this status. I will try not to come back. I will go back to the provincial capital in a while. Su Weifeng looked at Qiao Yushan in confusion. Qiao Yushan snorted and said, our relationship is fake. You will return to the army in 2 years, and you will not be able to be with Zhuangxuan at that time. Now that I think about it, if you just want to have a relationship, it's okay, but it's not suitable for marriage. Su Weifeng nodded vigorously, then took a breath and said, you are right. I can't marry Zhuangxuan, and I can't marry any woman. Qiao Yushan raised her chin and said, that's it. So I feel that maintaining this kind of relationship and not letting Zhuangxuan know can at least control her and prevent her from falling too deeply. Su Weifeng stared at Qiao Yushan in a daze. Qiao Yushan's thoughts really changed a lot before and after she went out. Qiao Yushan snorted and said, "Don't think that, if I say we maintain this kind of relationship, you can have your way with us, hugging each other left and right. This is absolutely impossible. Don't touch me in the future." As she said that, Qiao Yushan glared at Su Weifeng fiercely. Su Weifeng said awkwardly, "I'm sorry, sometimes I really think of you as my wife." Qiao Yushan's eyes flashed a trace of confusion, but she snorted immediately and said, "It's fake. You must always keep this string tight in the future. Don't use this excuse to take advantage of me." Su Weifeng said guiltily, "Ahem, I understand this, but in front of our relatives and friends, this is unavoidable, but you'd better not go too far, otherwise I will definitely be rude to you." Qiao Yushan raised her eyes. Her eyes were sharp. And Qiao Yushan took a step closer to Su Weifeng and said, "You are not allowed to tell Zhuangxuan about my decision." This. Okay. Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment, but still nodded heavily. Qiao Yushan knew that Su Weifeng was also a man who valued his promises, so she breathed a sigh of relief at this time, but still emphasized, "No matter what the circumstances, you are not allowed to say it, unless I ask you to say it." Okay. Su Weifeng agreed again. Qiao Yushan and Su Weifeng looked at each other for more than 10 seconds, and suddenly sighed softly, saying, "I'm really afraid that Zhuangxuan will be seriously injured after you leave." Su Weifeng felt a little heavy in his heart, because of what Qiao Yushan said. Lin Zhuangxuan would help him, no matter what for his injury, but if he didn't give them an explanation in the end, Su Weifeng couldn't convince himself. Feeling the heaviness of Su Weifeng's emotions, Qiao Yushan shook her head gently and said, "It's nothing. Everyone has a love that ends without a result. Just treat it as a love game that you know will have no result, and it can also be regarded as helping Zhuangxuan grow up." There were footsteps outside, and Su Weifeng hurriedly reminded, "Someone is coming." Qiao Yushan shook her head and stood on the treadmill again. It was Sun Yumeng who came in. She got up to make breakfast, and when she heard the noise, she came to see. She knew that Su Weifeng would get up early to exercise, and actually came in, just to say a word with Su Weifeng, which was also a sweet thing. She came in with a happy, sweet and excited smile on her face, but as soon as she entered the room, she saw Qiao Yushan was also here. Her face froze for a moment, and the smile on her face turned into a flustered one, even a little guilty. Qiao Yushan's eyes immediately saw the change in Sun Yumeng's expression, looked at Su Weifeng, and then looked at Sun Yumeng, but said calmly, "Yumeng, you got up so early." Sun Yumeng hurriedly said, "Yes, I'll make breakfast. Sorry to bother you. I'll go cook first." Then she ran away in a panic. Su Weifeng couldn't help but be speechless. Sun Yumeng was really not the material for lying. It was too easy for people to see the problem. As expected, when he turned around, he saw Qiao Yushan's sharp eyes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547. I can't understand. Su Weifeng had made a decision in his heart instantly. He said to Qiao Yushan, "I didn't do anything. You don't need to look at me like that, right?" Qiao Yushan snorted and said, "Sometimes I really don't understand. Obviously, these two little girls have feelings for you, but Zhuangxuan brought them to his side to give them more opportunities to be with you." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "Isn't this more conducive to keeping an eye on me?" Qiao Yushan squinted at Su Weifeng and said, "Really? But I always feel that there are other reasons." "Alas, you think too much. Since you are here to exercise, I will teach you a training method today. If you have time in the future, you can relieve fatigue by doing this for a few minutes a day. No matter how it works, I will ask you." Qiao Yushan did not refuse. Su Weifeng immediately taught a simple method of activating meridians. In addition to physical exercise, this method also adjusts breathing, which is a bit similar to yoga. In order to teach Qiao Yushan faster, Su Weifeng naturally began to have physical contact with Qiao Yushan. "Ouch, it hurts a little. Be gentle. It's normal to feel a little pain at first. Just bear with it. You have to know where the right point is." Hey, where are you touching? I didn't mean to. Right, twist your waist a little more. Half an hour later, Qiao Yushan was lying on the mat a little exhausted, with her head on Su Weifeng's legs, saying, "You bastard, didn't you say it wasn't tiring? I'm dying of exhaustion doing this." Su Weifeng took a towel and wiped Qiao Yushan's sweat, saying, "You've practiced it many times in one go, you only need to do it once or twice a day in the future, and after you get familiar with it, it won't be tiring at all." After wiping the sweat off her face, he wiped her neck. Qiao Yushan suddenly pushed Su Weifeng's hand away, glared at him fiercely, and said, "You're taking advantage of me again." Then he stood up and walked out. Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile bitterly, and was even a little confused. What did Qiao Yushan mean by this attitude now? He really couldn't figure it out. If she was really angry, she should be very angry. Not to say that she would completely break off the relationship with Su Weifeng, but at least she would ignore him. But she was only annoyed at the beginning, and then it seemed that there was no problem, and she would continue to maintain the current relationship. If she was not angry, but based on his understanding of Qiao Yushan, she was also a very principled person. How could she still date him when she knew that he liked Lin Xuanxun? Anyway, he couldn't figure it out, so he didn't study it for now. Now Su Weifeng was open-minded. Anyway, there couldn't be the kind of love that would stay together for a lifetime. When everyone was dating temporarily, as long as they were happy, they didn't have to think too much, as long as they didn't do anything to hurt each other. Qiao Yushan actually left not long after breakfast. It seemed that she really said it and did it. After Qiao Yushan left, Sun Yumeng immediately said to Su Weifeng nervously, "Brother Su, was it because I went to see you in the morning that my sister-in-law got angry?" Su Weifeng smiled and said, "No, don't think too much." Sun Yumeng said worriedly, "No way, I thought my sister-in-law looked at me with something wrong. She must have suspected me." Lin Xuanxun chuckled and said, "Yumeng, you and Weifeng have developed so fast. How far have you gone?" "Ah." Sun Yumeng was stunned for a moment, then her face flushed and said, "I didn't. It was just that day in the mountains, and then there was nothing, absolutely nothing." Lin Xuanxun chuckled and said, "Yeah, you didn't do anything. Why are you guilty?" Zhao Xiaoshu also laughed and said, "Sister Yumeng, you must have gone to bed and played games with Brother Su in your dream." No, you're talking nonsense." Sun Yumeng's face was red as blood, was about to drip out. Lin Xuanxun said with a smile, "That's right, you only have one thought. What's there to feel guilty about? Don't worry, it's okay." Sun Yumeng thought so too, then shook her head gently and said, "Yeah, why should I feel guilty?" Zhao Xiaoshu pursed her lips and smiled, and said, "It's very simple. You liked him secretly before, and you didn't think about what would happen with Brother Su, nor did you think about making Brother Su like you, so you felt at ease. But now Brother Su also likes you, and you know that you can be with Brother Su, so you are not so at ease." Sun Yumeng nodded repeatedly and said, "Not bad, that's the feeling." Lin Xuanxun smiled and said, "It's okay, don't talk about this kind of thing. Even if my sister really blocks you in bed, I can help you deal with it. My sister won't blame you, so you don't have to worry." Zhao Xiaoshu's eyes widened immediately and said excitedly, "Is it true?" Lin Xuanxun smiled and said, "Of course, just look at me." Zhao Xiaoshu immediately cast his gaze towards Su Weifeng, his eyes watery. Lin Xuanxun immediately tapped Zhao Xiaoshu on the head and said, "What are you thinking about? You are so impatient." Zhao Xiaoshu stuck out his tongue and said embarrassedly, "No, I just thought about it." Su Weifeng felt indescribably warm in his heart. These three girls put their hearts on him. As a man, he really didn't know how to repay their affection. When they talked, of course, they were not in front of Hexian. And Hexian was still a little cramped here. Generally speaking, she was in her own room. But this was better than being in the He family. At least she was free, and she could still feel the kindness of Lin Xuanxun and the others, without any intrigue. On Monday, Su Weifeng came to the company again. The company is now well staffed, with people coming and going, and because almost all of them are students who are still in the internship period, they are more motivated, and want to show their abilities. In addition, there were no senior people above him. Everyone could feel that in such a company, the upward channel was very wide, which was definitely incomparable to those companies that looked big but had reached a bottleneck in development. When everyone saw Su Weifeng, they all called him General Manager Su. That youthful energy made Su Weifeng feel much more energetic. Su Weifeng arranged people to make specific contacts for the several projects that were almost discussed this time. At noon, Su Weifeng came to the gym again, but the gym, which was usually very lively, seemed sparsely populated with only a few staff members. "What's going on?" Su Weifeng asked a fitness coach. The coach immediately said anxiously, "Feng Baoer is fighting with Jin Yuhu. Go and watch." Su Weifeng frowned. Feng Baoer was no match for Jin Yuhu now. Isn't this asking for trouble? Chapter 548, a $1 billion bet. Su Weifeng hurriedly followed and hurried to the ring room. It was already crowded with people, but the whole room seemed extremely quiet. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the ring, and there was an angry look on their faces. Looking at the situation on the ring, Su Weifeng felt a surge of anger. Feng Baoer was lying on the ground at this time, and Jin Yuhu's foot was stepping on his head. This was simply a way to humiliate people to death. Feng Baoer was lying on the ground like dead. Jin Yuhu's eyes met Su Weifeng's eyes at once, and then he grinned and said, "You are really lucky. The apprentice you taught is too bad. He can't even take two of my moves. Alas, it's really boring." The people around immediately turned their eyes to Su Weifeng, and then a passage suddenly opened in front of him. Su Weifeng walked towards the ring step by step. His eyes became more and more fierce, and his voice was also extremely cold. "Let her go. Haha. I'll give you a favor." Jin Yuhu laughed, and suddenly kicked Feng Baoer in the waist. Feng Baoer's body was kicked out of the ring by Jin Yuhu, and fell directly towards Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng stretched out his arms, and hugged Feng Baoer. The true energy in his hands flowed into Feng Baoer's body. Feng Baoer spat out a mouthful of blood, and opened her eyes. Feng Baoer opened her mouth, and immediately turned her eyes to Jin Yuhu on the ring. Jin Yuhu laughed loudly and said, "Don't worry, I couldn't bear to beat such a pretty girl to death. So, are you angry or not? Do you want to come up and avenge her?" Su Weifeng snorted and said, "Since you want to die, I'll grant your wish." After saying that, he strode directly towards the ring. He was really angry at this time. Even though Feng Baoer didn't have a very deep friendship with him, it was obvious that she was injured because of him, so he had to seek justice for Feng Baoer. Jin Yuhu was really eager to fight at this time, and said, "Haha, come on, I'm looking forward to fighting with you." Feng Baoer grabbed Su Weifeng's arm at this time, wiped the blood from her mouth with her other hand, and said, "Wait." Su Weifeng's tone was emotionless, and he said slowly, "Don't worry, I'll kill him like killing a dog." Feng Baoer's eyes were filled with hatred, and she gritted her teeth and said, "I want to avenge this myself." Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes and said, "Okay. How long will it take?" Feng Baoer asked again. "1 month is enough." "Okay. Then put me down." Su Weifeng put Feng Baoer down directly, and helped her stand firmly. Feng Baoer took a deep breath, then looked at Jin Yuhu on the ring, and said with gritted teeth, "You defeated me today, so I must defeat you myself." Jin Yuhu said disdainfully, "Ha, with your ability, it's impossible in this life. Let this man come up. I will show you that the strong man you think is just as vulnerable in front of me." Su Weifeng said, "It only takes her a month to defeat a waste like you." Jin Yuhu snorted coldly and said, "What a big tone. You don't dare to go to the ring yourself. Are you looking for an excuse?" Su Weifeng snorted and said, "Since you said so, then I will make a bet with you." "What bet?" Jin Yuhu shook his wrist, looking leisurely. Su Weifeng said lightly, "I'll bet your life." "Bet my life?" Jin Yuhu repeated, then laughed and said, "Then what is your bet?" Feng Baoer immediately said loudly, "My life." After that, he coughed twice, and some blood foam spurted out of his mouth again. Jin Yuhu sneered and said, "Your life? Haha, it's really funny. You're gambling your cheap lives with my life. You know how to find a good deal. Even if there are 10 or 100 cheap lives like yours, can they be worth my life?" There were no less than 100 people watching the excitement. Jin Yuhu hit a woman so hard, and then stepped on Feng Baoer's head in humiliation. Everyone was very dissatisfied with him. At this time, this statement was even more offensive, and everyone immediately started to make noise. Damn, how is your life worth anything? Rich people are great. I've never seen such a pretentious person. Hearing the voices of dissatisfaction from the people below, Jinwoo suddenly shouted, if you don't accept it, come to the ring and fight me. The people below were silent at once. Jinwoo was not only good at fighting, but also had a huge background. Who would dare to provoke him? Su Weifeng looked at Jinwoo, revealed a trace of sneer, and said, since you are afraid of death, then I won't bet my life with you. Isn't your family rich? I will bet with you. Bet with me? Jinwoo narrowed his eyes and said, okay, how much do you want to bet? If you bet less, I won't play with you. 1 billion. Su Weifeng uttered these 3 words lightly. The sound of a pin drop was audible, and everyone was shocked by these 3 words. 1 billion, even if it is a world boxing champion, I'm afraid there is no such price. Jinwoo curled his lips and said, 1 billion, Jinwoo, can take it out. Huh, do you have it? Su Weifeng said sarcastically, take Zimbabwean dollars? Jinwoo, don't think you can get away with the last 100 million, plus this time, I will settle with you, but this time I want to bet 100 million with you. US dollars. Boom. Everyone exclaimed. There are indeed some rich people who come here, but 1 billion US dollars, even if the wealth of all the people here is added together, it is not that much. And the person who can take out 1 billion US dollars to gamble at once, how strong must he be? At this moment, even Jinwoo's face changed. He was no longer as calm as before. Instead, he stared at Su Weifeng and said slowly, are you serious? Su Weifeng said disdainfully, do you think I, Su Weifeng, am like you, Jinwoo? Jinwoo was really hesitant at this time. 1 billion. For the Jin family, it can't be said to be a big loss, but it is also a huge sum of money, and it would be very uncomfortable to take it out. And 1 billion US dollars, that is definitely really touching the foundation of the Jin family. If they really lose, the Jin family will not say that they will go bankrupt, but at least they will lose more than half of their wealth. At this time, Su Weifeng raised the corner of his mouth and said, what, you don't dare? You don't even dare to accept her challenge? Jinwoo stared at Su Weifeng but didn't answer. Su Weifeng sneered again and said, I forgot one thing. You are not qualified to make the decision on such a big matter. Even if you look very arrogant, you are just a kid in the Jin family. How can you have such great power? Jinwoo's face turned red all of a sudden. Su Weifeng's words definitely hit the point. Chapter 549 Control. Jinwoo sneered and said, how funny. Do you think I should agree to your random boast? 10 billion US dollars, do you have it? Su Weifeng said lightly, it's just 10 billion US dollars. Su Weifeng, can really come up with it. You blew it out? Jinwoo curled his lips in disdain. He didn't believe that Su Weifeng could come up with 10 billion US dollars. Su Weifeng said calmly, this is also very simple. I will prepare 1 billion US dollars now. You also need to go back and ask your parents. If you can confirm it, we will meet in this gym in 3 days. At that time, we can invite Yang Cheng's famous figures to come to testify. For a villain like you who goes back on his word, this must be prepared. Jinwoo's face darkened. He was really a little unsure about Su Weifeng's aggressiveness. He pointed at Feng Bao and said, is she the one who is competing with me? Yes. Feng Bao nodded proudly and said, she must take back the humiliation you have inflicted on her today. At this time, the injury has eased a little. The words were full of energy and sounded loud. Well said. Everyone shouted loudly. Jinwoo hesitated at this time. He was very clear about Feng Bao's skills just now. Her strength was quite average. Even if he found a master, it would be impossible to achieve such results in a month. But Su Weifeng dared to bet 1 billion US dollars, and he still looked like he was sure of winning, which made him feel unsure. Oh my god, you don't even dare to accept a woman's challenge. Are you still a man? That's right, you beat her so badly just now, but now you don't dare to accept the challenge again. Where is your arrogance just now? Needless to say, he is afraid of losing 1 billion US dollars. That is not something he can decide. If he loses, he will be the sinner of the Jin family. Jinwoo was embarrassed by everyone's ridicule. From childhood to adulthood, He had never been bullied to this extent, or rather, no one dared to bully him like this. Gritting his teeth, Jinwoo said bitterly, "Very good, then we will be here in 3 days. If you, Su Weifeng, talk big, you will bear the wrath of our Jin family and this little girl. It will not be as simple as a beating this time." Su Weifeng sneered, then directly hugged Feng Bao and walked out, saying, "As long as you, Jinwoo, dare to accept it." Then he walked away. Although Su Weifeng did not go on stage to fight with Jinwoo, he just made a bet and led Jinwoo away by the nose. The whole scene was completely controlled by Su Weifeng. Although Jinwoo was ferocious on the stage, in the end everything was passive. Su Weifeng took Feng Bao and left the gym directly. Sitting in the car, Feng Bao covered her chest with her hands and gritted her teeth and said, "This bastard, he actually humiliated me like this. If I don't take revenge, I will not be a human being." Then she turned her head and looked at Su Weifeng with burning eyes, saying, "In 1 month, are you sure you can let me beat him?" "Of course." Su Weifeng replied lightly, "Where is your home? I will help you heal your wounds first." Feng Bao said, "I have to go to work in the afternoon." Su Weifeng looked at her and said, "You are covered in blood, can you go to work?" "Oh, that's right, then I'll take a leave." Feng Bao's home is not far from the gym, and she soon arrived at her home. Just now, she was so excited that when she walked, Feng Bao felt that her chest was very uncomfortable, as if her ribs were broken. I think my ribs are broken, I have to go to the hospital." Feng Bao felt that her chest hurt when she spoke now. Su Weifeng said, "It's okay, I'll check you first." He helped Feng Bao lie down, and Su Weifeng stretched out his hand to pinch her small vest, tearing it in two at once. "Ah, what are you doing?" Feng Bao exclaimed, and was about to get up. But Su Weifeng directly pressed her shoulders and said, "Don't move, I'll help you heal your wound." "But," Feng Bao looked at her chest, her face embarrassed. Su Weifeng looked at Feng Bao coldly and said, "Humph, from now on for a month, I will give you devilish training. Don't even think about the difference between men and women." Feng Bao was stunned for a moment, and then her eyes quickly became firm, and she said, "Okay, I listen to you." Su Weifeng nodded, and then directly cleared all the things on Feng Bao's body, and began to check Feng Bao's injuries. Feng Bao was still a little embarrassed at first, but seeing Su Weifeng's actions, there was no obscene meaning, and she soon relaxed. Especially when Su Weifeng touched her injured ribs, the pain made her careless about everything else. "You really hit me hard, breaking 2 ribs." Su Weifeng snorted, and the coldness in his eyes became stronger. Feng Bao grinned and said, "What should we do now?" Su Weifeng said lightly, "I promise you can recover within 3 days. Broken bones, recover within 3 days." Feng Bao's eyes widened immediately. "How is this possible?" Su Weifeng said, "If you doubt me, then you don't have to train for this month." Feng Bao immediately said anxiously, "No, I want to train. I want to become stronger. I will pay back that bastard 100-fold for humiliating me. Then just bear the pain now." Su Weifeng pointed his finger at her injured rib. "Okay, I can bear it." Feng Bao grabbed a corner of the quilt, stuffed it into her mouth, and bit it fiercely. Even if Su Weifeng used his true ki to assist, the pain of a broken bone and then reconnecting it was really unbearable. Feng Bao's face suddenly swelled red, her face was full of sweat, her teeth bit the quilt fiercely, and her eyes were about to pop out. Fortunately, Su Weifeng's movements were very skillful, and he stopped after a few moves. Then the 2 big hands pressed on both sides of the injury. Feng Bao could clearly feel 2 streams of heat coming from Su Weifeng's hands, surrounding the injured ribs. The pain quickly eased and disappeared. The comfortable feeling made Feng Bao a little confused, and she almost fell asleep. But he immediately felt that this might also be a rare opportunity. Why did Su Weifeng's hand send a heat flow? Is this the legendary true ki? She loosened the quilt in her mouth and immediately lowered her head to look at Su Weifeng's hands. Then she was depressed to find that she couldn't see Su Weifeng's hands. She felt that her big breasts were a hindrance, and it was inconvenient when she moved around. But now she felt that this thing was even more of a hindrance. She couldn't see how Su Weifeng's hands produced that kind of heat flow. Chapter 550. If you want to play, play big. Su Weifeng stopped, pulled the quilt over Feng Beoer, and said, lie still for 3 hours. After 3 hours, you can get up, but be careful not to use force, to avoid the bones being dislocated again. Okay. Feng Beoer agreed happily. Su Weifeng stood up and said, in these 3 days, you will find someone to take care of you. After 3 days, you will go to the gym. Are you leaving now? Feng Beoer asked anxiously. Su Weifeng asked, yes, what else do you want? This, do you really want to bet with him for $1 billion? Feng Beoer's mouth twitched when she mentioned this. Yes. Su Weifeng nodded. He's very strong, but I only have 1 month. What if I lose? With his mediocre skills, if you can't beat him after a month of practice, I will kill you directly. Seeing Su Weifeng's ferocious look, Feng Beoer grinned, and her smile seemed a little eerie and terrifying, and said, okay, then I have to beat him in order to survive. Su Weifeng smiled when he saw Feng Beoer like this. Feng Beoer looked more like a warrior. Only warriors have a fighting spirit. With a fighting spirit, they can overcome various difficulties and improve themselves better. After leaving Feng Beoer, Su Weifeng returned to the company and went straight to Lin Zhuangxun. Where have you been? I just had something to ask you. Lin Zhuangxun rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng said, I have received $1 billion order. $1 billion? Lin Zhuangxun's eyes widened immediately, then immediately rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng and said, I don't want to listen to your nonsense. I'm busy all day. Su Weifeng said, I'm serious. Su Weifeng then recounted the story of the battle with Jin Yuhu today. This scumbag is simply not a man. We must win, and win beautifully. Su Weifeng nodded and said, I think Jin Yuhu must take this battle now. If he doesn't, the reputation of the Jin family will definitely plummet. Lin Zhuangxun was also very serious at this time, and said, but I have 2 important questions. The first one is, are you sure you can win this game? Su Weifeng said confidently, this month, I will take Feng Beoer to special training to improve her abilities. When she comes back, she will definitely be able to defeat Jin Yuhu. Lin Zhuangxun said again, okay, the second thing, do you have $1 billion? Even if you will not lose, the other party will definitely use this matter to make trouble. If you can't get enough of it, the other party will not accept it. I seem to have made a lot of money in the past few months, since I came back. If you add up the shares and everything, I have 4 billion. That's only 3 billion short. Haha, the people who are delivering money are here. As soon as Su Weifeng finished speaking, 2 women walked in quickly. They were Zhu Zhaoxuan and Xu Lingling. After everyone greeted each other, Zhu Zhaoxuan said, Brother Su, can we participate in this matter? Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, it's not about whether we can, but we must participate. Zhu Zhaoxuan's eyebrows suddenly curved, and he said with a smile, with Brother Su's words, our Zhu family will definitely go all out. Xu Lingling also immediately said, I also represent the Xu family. As long as Brother Su has an order, our Xu family will also be obliged to do it. Su Weifeng said, originally I didn't want to get involved in the affairs between your families, but Jin Yuhu, this bastard, used such a method, so I will make him pay a heavy enough price. Zhu Zhaoxuan said, just tell me what Brother Su has to say. Su Weifeng said, it's very simple. You just add my challenge in the name of the family and tell the Jin family that this is not just a challenge between Jin Yuhu and me, but also a challenge between big families. This name is the investment of you big families, so that the Jin family can also find other people to invest together. Zhu Zhaoxuan's eyes lit up and he said, many families will be involved, which may result in the exposure of some relationships and the division of some family forces. Su Weifeng snorted and said, then let's make some noise. Enemies in the dark will make people uncomfortable. I want to see who else is my enemy. Zhu Zhaoxuan said, then we should also pull some people in, but there may not be too many families that will really support it. After all, everyone will investigate the combat effectiveness of both sides. It is hard for them to believe that Feng Beoer can improve so much in just 1 month. Su Weifeng nodded and said, then let's do this. Your Zhu family and Xu family are opening a market outside. I think many people are still willing to add insult to injury. No matter how many there are, just follow them. ZHU Xiaoxuan chuckled and said, okay, this is a good idea, and this way all the families can be involved. Even if the Jin family wants to refuse, it will be absolutely impossible. Xu Lingling said, this time we are really playing big, Brother Su. We are handing over our entire lives to you. If you fail, both of our families will go bankrupt. Su Weifeng nodded and said, although I'm sure about this matter, there may be accidents in any matter, so both of you should also consider it carefully. The foreign market is indeed quite dangerous. If you are willing to invest 10 billion or 800 million here for fun, that's fine. ZHU Xiaoxuan and Xu Lingling looked at each other, and ZHU Xiaoxuan said, I will explain this matter in detail to the family when I go back. I really can't be completely sure about this matter now. After all, this matter is indeed too radical. We are not worried about handing the fate of the entire family to Brother Su, but it is handed over to Feng Baoer, which is more or less uncertain. Xu Lingling also nodded and said, of course I want to do it, but after all, there are still some people in the family who will not agree, so I have to discuss this matter with the people in the family. Su Weifeng nodded and said with a smile, I was just daydreaming just now. In fact, $1 billion is a big enough bet. It is enough to hurt the Jin family. There is no need to add more. ZHU Xiaoxuan said, thank you for your understanding, Brother Su. We are absolutely sure about this matter and can help Brother Su raise funds right away. Su Weifeng nodded and said, I have a gap of 3 billion for the time being. You guys can figure it out. Lin Zhuangxuan looked at several people talking about billions casually, and the corners of his mouth twitched. What's the point of doing this business? No matter how hard he worked, no matter how much money he made, it would not be as good as other people's success. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.